Hey.
What?
I got an idea for the intro for the podcast.
Okay.
Check it out.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Ironstone Podcast. I'm Anderson Miller,
Dimitri Ray.
and on today's episode of 007 Tuesday, we're talking about the third entry into the Pierce Brosnan series, The World Is Not Enough. And I can't wait to get into this one, specifically this one. But first, a word from our sponsor. Do you want to start a podcast? Well, now you can, for free. And it's as easy as downloading the new Spotify podcast app to your phone and or computer and hitting record. Spotify Podcasts allows you to record anytime or upload files and provides all the tools you'll need to make your episode sound as solid as stone. Spotify Podcasts is the new home for any podcasters looking to expand their brand and reach new audiences across the globe. All right, so I'm going to start off by saying that this film is definitely my favorite so far, which I know we haven't seen them all, but this one was through and through a Bond movie. Just felt like a James Bond movie.
Before you continue, tell us what the hell happened.
Fine, Dima. I guess I'm glad you asked, even though you just kind of barked an order at me. All right, James Bond, The World Is Not Enough. James Bond, Pierce Brosnan, is back. An oil tycoon is murdered in MI6, and Bond is sent to protect his daughter. Renard, who has a bullet lodged in his brain from a previous agent, 009, is secretly planning the destruction of a pipeline. Bond gains a hand from research scientist Dr. Christmas Jones, who witnesses the action which happens when Bond meets up with Renard, but Bond becomes suspicious about Electra King, the daughter of the tycoon who had the money to begin with that got murdered, especially when Bond's boss, M, goes missing. Bond must work quickly to prevent Renard from destroying Europe. And I guess before we continue, spoiler alert, I repeat, spoiler alert, we are spoiling this movie. All right, lots going on in this movie. And for those of you who have been following us on our 007 Tuesdays, last episode we had more of a structure that we implemented in our episode. And I think we're going to continue with that. I think it keeps for more organized discussion and also helps me actually cover all the things I want to cover. So that way we're not bouncing all over the place. Even though my notes bounce all over the place. Have you ever read a manga?
Oh, what?
A manga.
What's a manga?
A manga, depending on how you pronounce it. So it's like, it's a comic that goes from right to left because that's how Asian culture reads.
Oh, like how Hebrew's written and read.
Yes.
I have not read that way, but I'm familiar with it.
Are you familiar with the Netflix series Death Note?
Sounds familiar.
Okay, that was derived from a manga.
Oh, okay.
I actually read. It's one manga that I've actually read the whole series. Yeah. It was really good. Now, obviously, I'm not the biggest anime fan or manga fan, but some of them are actually pretty good. That one was recommended to me in high school, and it was actually lent to me. So I was like, I'll read it. That was good. It's really weird to read right to left, but I'm one of those guys that when I pick up a magazine, I flip right to left. Like if I'm just casually I don't know, I've done that my whole life.
So you start in the back and
yeah, because it's easier for me to do that. It's weird, but that's how I've always done it. But like obviously I like to read left to right.
Right.
But it was interesting to read in the order that I would casually flip through a magazine or a catalog. What's interesting, Dima, my notebook, which, I love my notebook, but it is set up to where you basically have a page that starts, on a traditional right side. And then if you want to add additional notes, it flips to the back and it has a cutoff point, and then you can draw or whatever you want to do down here in this negative space.
Oh, that's cool.
I like to have everything for one movie open so I don't have to flip a page. So I start over here, and then usually this will all be like the narrative of the movie, and then I'll do like fun facts over here. So like, see, earlier movies, this would be all the narrative, and this would just be fun facts. But these freaking Bond movies have so much going on in them, which is kudos to them, because literally all 3 of these Bond movies, I've had to do this. I start over here, I draw an arrow, this arrow connects to here, and then I misguessed on this movie how much I was going to have to write, because I thought this would be enough for what I had left. I had to do double arrow symbols down here to even continue further pushing upwards. So I'm not even going like from right to left. I'm hitting the left page and going up instead of down. But this is what I'm saying. When we do these podcasts, I'm literally jumping all over the freaking place.
Yeah.
It's bad. So it's nice that at least we're talking about it in order now.
Right.
So that in my notes, I know, okay, I started the movie here and I ended over here. Yeah. So I just have to go this weird wonky ass way to get to the end of the movie. So anyways, this is the fullest I've done for any movie we've reviewed so far. Look at that. 2 full pages of notes. That's a first. No movie we've done I've had that many notes for.
Really?
And it's almost all check marks.
Yeah. That was a solid movie.
No, dude, I'm telling you, I last episode, when you told me the title of this movie, and you said the actress that was in it,
yeah,
I was like, oh, I think this one's good, Dima. And I was right. This is the movie I was hoping it was going to be. Because I remember the bad guy, Renard.
Yeah.
I remembered him, and I was like, dude, I hope it's the dude who has the bullet in his brain. Yep. And it was, and I was like, yes! So, yeah, very excited to get into this movie. Obviously, we have some donuts and bagels. Can't see my plate, but I got bagels.
I didn't have any issues at Meijer getting my donuts, so...
I had a pleasant experience today.
At Meijer?
Yeah, now here's what's funny. Helga was working.
Helga was working.
She was stocking the shelves with this guy who I hadn't seen before. And they were leaving right as I was walking up, but she kind of looked at me through the side of her eye and just kept going. And I was like, okay. Now, thankfully, in the morning, they'll have donuts and bagels on those trays in the display cabinet.
Right.
But they'll also have prepackaged stuff from the same, what's the word? Batch. Thank you. I don't know what I was looking for there. But yeah, from the same batch. So I know they're just as fresh as what's in there, but they're just conveniently packaged so you can grab and go. So I didn't have to sit there and get help from Helga. I didn't have to, argue with her about their labeling. I picked this up. I left. So
yeah,
I had a pleasant experience at Meijer today. I don't know why I have this quarrel with Meijer now just because of one Helga. I love Meijer. Anyways, so yeah, we got donuts, bagels, so don't mind us if we get a little munchy in the microphone. I know it's probably rude, but we just don't really care. It's our show.
No.
Anyways, we're going to start off by talking about our whiteboard. If you are not subscribed to our channel, which we know most of you are not because we have a lot of viewers and a lot of interactions, but not many subscribers, hit the subscribe button. It's so easy and it means so much to us. And we appreciate it. We really do. So hit the subscribe button. It's right there. Or if you're on an app that has a follow button or whatever it may be. We're on all the socials. So follow us, damn it. And then, of course, we have our merch line, which is on teespring.com. We had some issues with the link on our first video, Bond video. So some of you might have watched the Bond video, not seen it. But at the point of this being posted, it's all squared away. So we apologize for that hiccup. But yeah, so check all that stuff out. Follow us. Be cool. And yeah. Anyways. All right. Anything you want to say before we get into this movie?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm excited to talk about it. So, what's your rating on this?
I didn't write that down yet. I would say,
Hold up, you write your rating down as well?
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, just in case I need to reference. Like one of our episodes, I think with the whole discussion, I had to reference my rating of another movie. And I had to like go back because I couldn't remember what I gave it exactly.
Hey,
Because
that
sometimes
makes
it's
sense.
weird, like 3.2
right.
or whatever.
Okay. I'll do that.
For this, I would say it's a solid 4 out of 5 stones. Just no points, no like it's a good movie. It definitely has its flaws, but I would watch it again. I would.
Yeah.
I would watch this movie again. It's very entertaining.
Yeah, I have to agree with that.
And like I can't wait to one day have like kids.
Yeah.
And this will be the Bond movie that I'll be excited to show them first.
yes.
You know? Like when we start the Pierce Brosnan run, I'll be like, wait till we get to that freaking The World Is Not Enough. Like that's the cool one. So yeah, I'm gonna put that down. 4 out of 5. What is yours, good sir?
I'd have to agree. I mean, everything from it, I thought the writing in this one. So I'm listening to last week's episode.
Mm-hmm.
That was, or what, the one that was just dropped yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm listening to that now,
Yeah, at the time of this recording, we just dropped it yesterday. So.
and it's kind of funny that each. You know, when we filmed that one, I was like, yeah, it was better than the first one. I felt like, you know, the Pierce, you know, really started filling in that role more, and so did Judy. And same thing with this one. I think they really finalized these characters and, you know, who they wanted them to be.
Yeah, there's just a consistent development.
Yes.
In terms of production quality, direction style, VFX, practical effects, yeah, just across the board, this series is just going up.
Yeah,
across the board.
I liked how I mean the writing, just the writing in itself was phenomenal.
Writing was great in this movie.
You know, you obviously have your cheesy one-liners that he always does.
He has to do.
He has to, exactly.
And it's like I've said in the previous episode, like we have established that this Bond is very fantastical.
Yeah.
And that he's cheesy.
No.
So I was actually in this movie waiting for the cheesy one-liners. I was like, yep, there it is. Yes. Like they've actually turned me into a fan of them.
Yeah.
As ridiculous and cringy as they are.
Yeah. But I mean, even then though, you know, I thought the writing, and I was watching a, you know, recap of this movie when I first got here today, just to really like refresh it from last night, because I'm gonna be honest, I was half asleep.
Yeah. It's tough to do this crap. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, it is so hard to just watch movies now. Like, I feel like I was always watching movies before we started a podcast.
Yeah.
Now that we're doing it for a podcast, it's like, oh man, I forgot to fit this on my schedule. And then like, I have to like be in bed with my wife and turn the TV on. I hope it doesn't wake her up. I'm just like sitting there like secretly watching this movie and trying to make notes. Like I have one of those lights that goes around my neck to read comic books and shit at night. I'll have one light on. I'll be sitting there like taking notes. Yeah, it's become a Bond mission in itself.
But the guy said like he was kind of complaining about this movie a little bit.
Oh, the guy you were listening to?
Yeah. But I mean, I thought the action scenes that we got were very necessary for what was happening and everything to the storyline and all that. But I also thought the dialogue complemented that very well as also. It wasn't like GoldenEye where, you know, mid-fight they stop, have dialogue, and then they go back. Like, that didn't make sense.
Like, I have to say this thing really quick.
Right, exactly. I felt like the dialogue and the fighting complemented each other very well in this movie. So I was very satisfied.
I agree.
4 out of 5.
Out of all the scenes that we're going to break down, there is only one collection of scenes. So one sequence in this movie that I thought was so dumb and unnecessary. But we'll get to that. All right, so we'll start with the beginning, because right off the jump, the beginning of this movie is awesome for several reasons. So right now, before watching this movie, we've been used to getting an opening sequence that really doesn't connect with the rest of the movie.
Right.
It's here's this with Bond being cool, doing something with a lot of action. He saves the day unscathed. Cue the title music, and then we get the cool sequence of graphics and blah, blah, blah. It actually takes a while for us to get to that title sequence. It takes longer than the first two movies. And the opening of this movie is connected to the greater plot, which was really cool. You feel like you're just jumping right into the story of the movie.
Right.
And that's so cool. And I mean, this movie's over 2 hours long. So it's pretty impressive that they were able to come up with a story like this, because the other Bond movies felt like the story was very rushed and kind of confided in the small space to where they're like, all right, this all comes after the title sequence. We need to come up with something for the beginning of this movie.
Right.
Not this movie. And I really appreciated that, because I was thinking when the movie started, I was like, this seems like a very elaborate thing to not be connected to the rest of the movie. Because up till the title sequence, so much happens. We have him in the bank in Spain where he talks to that Swiss banker. And you understand, okay, he's getting this money back from something. We're not really sure what's going on. Now, right off the bat, we get a classic Bond and, fill-in-the-blank woman with him being very suggestive. Because she leans over, and actually in the script, she's just Cigar Girl.
Yep.
And she says, you want to check my figures, when she's handing him the papers with everything running down the money that he's getting. Mm-hmm. And he was like, oh, I'm sure everything's nice and round, or whatever he says. Right. And she just kind of looks at the banker really? I got to deal with this guy. I was like, cool. We get that right off jump.
Yeah.
But then things pick up very quickly, because he doesn't take too much time to let them know, I'm not playing games with you guys, and I like that. It felt very well-paced, nothing dragged. There wasn't any unnecessary dialogue, because in context of things, the people in this room don't matter.
It felt more like Daniel Craig.
Yeah.
Than it did Pierce Brosnan.
Very, it didn't feel cheesy, I've infiltrated this whole military base. Or no, he's in a bank. They were expecting him. But then he's like, I'm on to what's going on here.
Just straight to business.
And that's where things pop off. So yeah, I love the whole intro. And then that cuts to the MI6 in London.
Yes.
Which, fascinating fact about that. That was actually filmed very close to the real life HQ for MI6.
Oh, wow.
And they were denying approval for the studios to film there because they viewed it, obviously, as a high security threat.
Makes sense.
That was denied by a foreign secretary. I forget his name. And he was quoted saying that after all Bond had done for Britain, it was the least Britain could do for Bond. So in real life, a foreign secretary thanked the character of Bond as a fictional IP for all he had done for Britain by allowing them to do this thing that the real MI6 in real life didn't want to happen. I was like, dude, I'll tell you what, Hollywood politics in the 90s were something else.
Yeah.
It's crazy. You watch this movie, you wouldn't expect there was all that controversy over something so small. Because in terms of setting,
right,
they only show the building 1 or 2 times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But just that little bit of screen time was a big security threat to the real life.
Right.
And I understand that.
No, yeah.
So I couldn't believe that somebody actually made it work. So that was really cool.
Impressive.
But I also like that we get to go to MI6 headquarters. We're there, we get to see this is where everything's being decided, and so that was cool getting a inside look. And then we have Robert King, who comes to pick up the money because it's his money, as we come to learn. And he, I guess, has a history with M.
Yes.
We see that they're associates, maybe closer than that, friends or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, I like that whole thing because it really sets up this movie nice.
It does.
We see this money was very important. We don't really know why. We see, okay, here's the guy that wanted the money. We don't know why he's where he's at in life, but we know he's important, right? And then we know someone was wanting to kill him, but also make an impact to MI6 at the same time, which they did very efficiently because there's that chemical reaction, and they detonate the money with that pin he has, and it blows up like a bomb and impacts the home center of MI6, like literally just
Takes
from the
out
inside.
Side wall.
Yeah, so I thought that was really cool. And that all happens in a matter of 5 or 6 minutes. And then that's where I was like, okay, we're going to cut to the title sequence. But no.
Right.
We see, is it Cigar Girl that's in the boat? It looks like the same actress. Okay. We see Cigar Girl out in the boat aiming a gun at the building, and she sees Bond.
Just lights it up.
And dude, I actually love this. It is so ridiculous. But again, we're established in this fantastical world that Bond lives in. He runs through MI6 yelling, and I love that they show Q like, oh, whatever. Like, Q's working on stuff, and he's just like, whatever. Like, go do whatever. But then he gets that speedboat, which that speedboat is badass.
That was awesome.
So cool. That felt like something you would have in the video game, just like this ridiculous speedboat that can go everywhere and do ridiculous stuff. But he freaking rides it out of the building. It's not even like it's in a like water basin or something. It's up on like whatever story of the building, and there's just a hole that opens in the wall, and it like literally shoots him out of the building.
It was reminded me of Batman.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like which Batman was that? The
89 or oh yeah, I know.
It was like the 69 mixed with the 89, or the 67 mixed with the 89 or something.
It definitely has that Adam West feel to it. Yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah, so it just like shoots him out of the building, and I was like, okay. But again, at this point,
we expect it.
Yeah, I would be kind of surprised if it, again, was in some like water basin where he can just kind of come out from a dock or something. But again, I think that made sense because if she's in a speedboat and she's already started getting away when he's all the way up here, if he has to go all the way down to like ground level to get to water, she'd be gone. But if he just comes down two flights of steps and then he can freaking project out of the building like a missile. So I was like, all right, I guess it makes sense with timing.
But I like how they did it because it showed his intelligence as a character, because he's never even seen the boat until that point.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't even supposed to be for him. Q was like, yeah, it was for me when I retired, some shit. So, but he was able to figure it out pretty quickly, and I thought that was a very nice little detail they added in. Like,
he's able to think on the fly,
intelligent,
and adapt as he goes. On his
feet.
Mm-hmm.
The only issue I had with that scene was him on the freaking land.
Well, we're gonna get to that.
But I mean, the scene
there's a couple things.
There are a few things
because the boat goes underwater,
right, like a submarine.
Which, all right, I got a comment like it's ridiculous, but I loved it. It got a check mark when they go underwater. He's not holding on to the steering wheel or anything. He takes time to adjust his tie underwater. Found out Pierce Brosnan actually wanted that. It wasn't in the script.
Really?
He thought it would be a nice little like chuckle moment, which it was.
It was.
When I saw like he's in this like high speed chase trying to get someone who's a part of blowing up headquarters. He's gonna take the time to be like, still gotta look sharp. Like I was like, that's Bond. That's just James Bond. But yeah, so then obviously she's able to evade him. I do like that the boat, it's not like he's a master at driving it.
Right.
So like when he could have stopped her, he couldn't slow the freaking thing down, and he literally ramps into the boat and completely misses her.
Yeah.
Overshoots. I kind of liked that. It wasn't just like, oh, Bond knows how to drive this boat. It was like, no, this thing's crazy. Struggled. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's kind of winging it with this. And that shows because, and that's the part I do like about going on land. It's like, he just kind of hoped that would work. Yeah. And he's going through like a restaurant and shit, like just completely. This kind of makes me think of Tomorrow Never Dies. Q's like talking about insurance. Because I was just like, oh my God, man. Like, you just destroyed someone's restaurant. You're destroying city buildings. Like, you're literally just like I gotta catch this boat. Whatever.
He's like, Q will take care of all this for me.
It's so ridiculous. But yeah, going on land, I was like, because there's nothing on the bottom of the boat. Like, there's no wheels that come out.
And I was looking for that.
Same.
I was like, okay,
Same.
maybe there's wheels, but then you just see the sparks going, and you see the flame coming out of the exhaust like he punched it, which
Mhm.
reminded me of Michael Keaton's Batmobile when
Yes,
he floored it and
yes.
it goes. So I was like, okay, that's kind of like Batman, which makes sense because it was only like 10 years after. Like, that was really big in that you know,
Yeah.
80s, 90s time period.
Yeah.
But I wasn't even mad about it. I was like, all right, that's a little ridiculous, but it is what it is. Like, it's a cool scene.
So I mean, at this point, ridiculousness is just it gets a pass for me. Except it wasn't like a fan boat, because that's like where I'd be okay with a boat coming on land to some degree. But even at that, when you bust through like just going through a brick wall of a restaurant and then crashing into tables and shit, that boat's gonna stop. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing is like that boat. I kind of took it because the boat should have definitely just stopped moving.
Yes.
But I kind of took it as like that thing is just made out of like steel, like just solid, like very strong type of steel or some shit that's just like indestructible, which makes sense for the shit that Q makes him.
Oh yeah.
So I'm like,
we've seen
okay.
cars that can take bullets and missiles and crap
Exactly.
and not get a dent. So yeah, again, we've established this kind of crap
Right.
will happen in the movie, and that's why it wasn't a negative for me. I was just like, okay, Bond has a cool boat,
Yeah.
whatever.
Now, the way they ended the boat chase to the hot air balloon, I loved that. I thought it was really cool. Like, no way in hell would that actually happen in real life. But I thought it was really cool. Like, when it ramps, he jumps and is able to grab the rope.
Well, not only that, but we have our villain being established as something serious before the title sequence, which this is the first Bond movie to do that. Like, not only is this connected to the greater story, but this girl is so scared of whoever's pulling the strings that she'd rather just kill herself. I was like, because she says, like, I can't get away from him.
Right.
Shoots that tank and I was like, wow. Now, the other thing that I was curious about, and we get confirmation from this after the title sequence, and I don't want to skip over the titles. I actually want to talk about the title sequence on this movie.
Oh, that's all you. I skipped that title sequence.
But there were things happening to Bond as he was falling down that top, and he's like hitting the support cords or whatever they are, like the tension cables.
Yeah, those metal wire things.
The first one he slides through, he tries to grab and he misses, and it kind of hits him in a weird way. And then he comes down and hits the other group, and he catches himself on that. But I'm like, man, I feel like his shoulder would be screwed up. And it was. He's injured. I was like, thank you. Finally, Bond has repercussion for the crazy shit he's doing. You know, I liked seeing that. So, but we'll get to that in a second. For anyone who sticks around for the title script, I go through them because I'll usually let them play while I'm like getting my notepad and stuff ready. Because usually, the beginning of the movies isn't really important. Right. I'm able to just watch it and then get out my notes and start. So yeah, I was kind of thrown off by this movie. I was like, oh, okay, the intro is a part of the greater movie. Yeah, so I took that time to write down my notes while the music was playing. I like the music for this one.
The music was good.
It literally says the world is not enough in the chorus of the song, and it's actually pretty cool. It's a cool song. So I was like, okay. And that's not taken away from like the other ones, but it's just this one was actually like, it felt like a cool Bond theme almost. It had this like smoky, almost liquid feel to it, and Bond kind of embodies that in some ways. So I was like, okay, that's cool. So anyways, that's all I wanted to say about that. So then we cut from that to MI6 headquarters in Scotland. And I kind of like that as well, because we're not only seeing like MI6 has this big HQ in London, but we also have like,
substation.
Yeah, like sub posts or whatever. And that was an interesting scene just because we get, it's very much like, okay, audience, here's what happened at HQ in London, but it was kind of necessary. Like, I was able to acknowledge that, you know, Bond, when he was going to drink that bourbon, he saw like the condensation of the glass was having a reaction with like something on his fingers, and he's like, "Oh, I was touching that money when it was getting scanned."
Yeah.
Like and I was able to connect on that, but I'm like, I could see how people maybe would miss that. So you got this dude literally explaining everything that happened, and it's like, okay. But after that, he explains how the pin was swapped out and it was being controlled by somebody else. So that was cool because we get that little explanation, but it's also in a debriefing to like the field agents and whatever. So well done. You know, it was kind of a little too like on the nose for me in the beginning, but then I was like, all right, like you guys did all right with that. And then that's where we see Bond is injured because Moneypenny's like handing out the manila folders with assignments for this, and he doesn't get one, and he finds out like he's not cleared for field duty. So I didn't even write anything down for this. When he's seeing the doctor, we knew what was going to happen there. 100%. That was so predictable. Like, oh, here's this attractive young doctor who's like supposed to tell Bond, "You're injured, buddy." It's like, wonder what's going to happen here. So yeah, that was very like filler, whatever.
Yeah,
expected that. Like Bond's going to get cleared. There's no doubt about that. So yeah, she clears Bond, and then he goes and talks to Q, and I loved this sequence. Loved it. We meet because here's what I like about it. We don't just get the typical like, here's these new fancy toys, blah 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 blah. No, he's literally telling Bond that he's about to retire, and he introduces his replacement, who Bond calls R as a joke. Yeah. But what's funny is in the screenplay he's actually called R. Yeah, so I thought that was funny. But he's just kind of like he seems smart, but he's kind of like quirky in a way. You know, he's got his coat caught in the door, and then he like.
So, maybe I missed this, but I fully anticipated R to be a bad guy.
He doesn't really get like shown again.
Okay.
For anything.
I didn't think so.
He doesn't have any relevancy other than like.
But I expected it. I was like, they're going to bring this guy in. He's going to be a bad guy.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to see him later and this and that.
Well, I liked it because it was a very soft way to introduce a replacement to Q, who kind of had the same charm that Q had. But again, he's kind of quirky. So it was almost establishing a new dynamic with the replacement for Q and Bond. Like, Bond and Q had this dynamic of like, Bond is kind of the goofy one who's destroying all these great things that Q works on, where you feel like R is going to make stuff, but Bond's going to be like the sharper tuned one. It's an interesting like shift in dynamic.
Yep.
So I'm like, I don't know if that character's actually in the next one, but if he is, that would be cool. You know what I mean? Because now we have this new guy instead of Q. So yeah, I like that scene. And they do kind of subtly show us like the car. They show us that like inflation suit that protects Bond from like stuff happening around him.
It's like a bubble.
And then Q just descends into the floor. Like always have an escape plan. He just starts lowering down, and Bond's like, okay.
That was cheesy, but I wasn't even mad.
But it was funny because usually Bond's the one being cheesy. So
right.
It was kind of a funny like exit for Q.
I thought it was a good way to send him off.
Yeah, it was.
It was very like old school spy.
Yeah, and they didn't have like a sappy like it's been nice working with you or
tears, flowers, and all that.
He just descends into the floor like okay. But again, I accepted that because we see that the car was below the floor in like a substation that you would see at like a Valvoline or something where they change oil out. Yeah. So like I was like, okay, that's one way to get down to the substation. Like
makes sense.
I'm not questioning that. Yeah. Because otherwise I'd be like, why is there just randomly a part in the floor that descends into whatever is under it? Like, so no, I like that whole scene. And then we get the explanation for Renard.
Yep.
And I really like that because of like the technology. Yeah. That was cool.
Yeah, the technology. I thought it was I loved that character all the way around, but I really liked how like he's pretty much invincible, but they give like a reason that could be believable. Like, I feel like if, somebody got shot in the head and it's only hitting, like, the nerves or whatever, and, I mean, it's going to kill him eventually, but, like, it's slowly moving through his head.
Medulla oblongata is what his the bullet is going through.
Yeah, that.
And
that could make sense to me. I'm like, okay, cool. That's a cool explanation, and the dude's like, he has no feeling anywhere. Like, makes sense.
It's the coolest way to set up a bad guy because, for one, they're bringing him up in this 3D hologram.
Yes.
Like, we don't even have a picture of this guy. We had to have somebody kind of recreate what he looks like in this hologram. I was like, that's cool. But then they use the hologram to show us as the audience, because obviously Bond doesn't need to see all this, the brain and how the bullet's traveling. And I was like, dude, this is so cool. Like, this is the coolest way to set up a bad guy. Like, we haven't even seen this guy. All we know is a girl was willing to kill herself to avoid having to deal with him for failing. And now we have MI6, who's like almost afraid of talking about him. Yeah. There's obviously a history there, especially with M. And we have to bring up this 3D hologram.
Right.
I was like, cool. That is so cool. And then, you have the doctor explaining, like, this guy can't feel anything. He's dying already, so he's not even afraid of death. It's like, how do you defeat that? Exactly. How can you get any kind of advantage on somebody like that?
Can't.
It's a great way to set up a bad guy. Now, later we learn, the one thing he still does have is, like, his brain, which can produce feelings of emotion chemically in that way, like, which his love, interest, and we'll get into all that. But yeah, from the get-go, we're just like, here's this cold, hard villain who has been a problem before. We had 009 try to get him. Failed. It's like, whoa, okay. And again, this guy got shot in the head and he's still alive. Like, that's a great way to set up a badass. Now, my one issue, he's Russian. We had to go back to the Russians. I was sitting here thinking, like, man, we're going all across the globe with this movie, but we're going to somehow end up with Russia. Like, I was just sitting there waiting for it. But he's who I was excited. Like, I was hoping this was, the villain in this movie, because there's a video game called Agent Under Fire that I've referenced before. I had on PlayStation 2. It took a lot of elements from this movie and made that video game, like the plot line, having spoiler alert, female as the main villain, having a Russian scientist as like her co-conspirator. So like, and he's a bald guy who looks kind of evil. So his design almost mimics Renard's. Yeah. So, and it was funny, like I was watching the movie, I was like, man, a lot of this reminds me of Tomorrow Never Dies. Or Agent Under Fire, sorry, not Tomorrow Never Dies, Agent Under Fire. Yeah. And then I Googled it, and yeah, like sure enough, it's got a lot of things that it pulled from this movie. So yeah, great bad guy. There's a lot of things we can say about him, but we'll get into that when the time comes. All right. Now, from here, is there anything else you want to say before we move to the next sequence?
No.
Okay.
No.
From here, I guess there's one thing I'll point out because I think it's a funny relationship. I referenced Moneypenny in Tomorrow Never Dies. When Bond first goes to HQ in London, he sees her first. He gives her that cigar, and she's like, I know the perfect place to put this or whatever. I know exactly where to put this. And I was like, okay. But they have that relationship that's very suggestive but never goes anywhere. Well, she remarks on the doctor clearing Bond in this, scene where they're explaining Renard's situation. So I just think it's funny that like there's this jealousy going on within the confines of MI6. Like Bond is just he's a rascal, man. But anyways,
touchy.
We're going to get into my least favorite part of this movie that I referenced at the beginning of the episode.
Okay.
I forget how to pronounce it, but thankfully I left it on a tab on here. I came prepared today, Dima.
Ouch, I didn't.
Azerbaijan, the country in Europe that we go to next. where people speak Russian, of course. Russian. So that's where Bond goes because there's that pipeline being laid out, and he knows that Elektra is going to be there. Oh, you want to talk about the funeral? I skipped over the funeral's not really.
No.
Okay. Right.
Him figuring out the money, how the pounds is the same amount as the American dollar.
I did skip over that
5 billion or 5 million.
He points it out to M
that
it's the same amount that was the ransom for Elektra. Yeah, we should talk about that
and that's such an important part. And the reason why I said no a little bit ago to anything else was because I couldn't exactly remember. Like, was that then or was that
it was
after that?
Because that's what makes
makes
M explain. Yeah, because she explains who this guy is.
Yep.
That he was the captor of Elektra, which is King's daughter, and she had this guilt for advising him to not pay the ransom because they wanted to use her as a tool to get closer. So she lives with this guilt of knowing that things could have been differently if decisions were made differently, you know?
Right.
And that's a great setup because, for one, it shows M's going to have emotional attachment to this, unlike anything else we've seen. Yep. But also, it establishes that Elektra, at this point, is going to be the next target. So Bond's like, I need to go where she's at. Right. Yes. So good. Thank you for that. And that's what leads us into Azerbaijan, whatever it's called. I'm sorry. I'm so bad at pronouncing things. But yeah, so let me just tell you my issue with all of this. Bond gets there. We have people looking like we can't tell. Like I watched this with subtitles, and it just says people chanting Russian, people speaking Russian. Even when Elektra is talking to that guy, we don't get any insight on what's being discussed, which we know why later.
I hate when shit.
But it's just like, okay, we don't get to know anything right now. So for me, I was like, if I didn't have subtitles on, I'd be watching this. I would see Bond is just kind of there, and she shows up. And we see what's his face, like, I told you to stay. And she's like, I know what you told me.
Yeah.
Like, but I'm doing my thing. Like, I'm independent, you know, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, yeah, like, go, Elektra. Like, screw that.
Right.
Like, this is your empire now. Do your thing. And it appears she delivers good news, or has this guy at least tell people good news. And they're like, yay. And then, like, she talks to Bond. And then in a matter of a couple minutes, we go from, like, we've never talked before to let's go skiing.
Right.
I was like, that's so weird.
Yeah.
It just felt very like, ugh, like, all right, let's just rush through this, I guess. And then next thing we see, they're in a helicopter. One thing I'm going to point out, her bodyguard, that dude with the long hair who's always standing there, like, he's actually a wrestler.
Yeah, John Sura.
Yeah.
Saru.
He's a wrestler. And it's funny because I knew he looked kind of familiar. But anyways, he doesn't really do much in this movie, except look very concerned about Bond's presence. But yeah, so next we see they're in a helicopter, and, you know, there are mountains in that area at a higher elevation. It's like California. You go to a higher elevation, there's snow and stuff. Right. So I wasn't questioning the setting or anything like that. I was actually kind of excited because I usually like in Bond movies when he's in a snowy setting. That's usually where we get really cool action scenes and stuff. And they just dropped the ball for me. You might disagree with me, but, like, they're up there. She's showing Bond, like, the layout for the pipeline. I was like, okay, this makes sense why she would take him up there. I just still felt like it was too rushed. But then all of a sudden, we see what are they called? Something, Parahawks. Like, it looks like there's only 9 of them coming in, but when they get on the ground, there's like 20 or something. But, you know, they're coming for, we believe, Elektra? I mean, it's not really made clear why they just happen to be coming to where they're at.
See, that's where I had a problem as well.
Okay, I'm glad.
Because, like you said, they made it seem like they were going for Elektra.
Mm-hmm.
But then he's like, head for that area. I'm going to lead them into the trees or whatever. And they followed him. So I'm like, you're setting it up as if they're there for her. Why would they follow you?
It doesn't make any sense.
So I was like, So, I mean, looking back, maybe they weren't there for her and they were there for him. But then why would...
Like, even at the end of the movie, though, I can't make sense of it. Right. That's the thing. Like, because at that point, she didn't understand, like what... Like, there was no reason to call in all these guys just to get rid of Bond. But anyways.
Oh, wait. They were there for Bond.
But why? Like, what was her...
There's no reason.
I was gonna say, but yeah, that's my point. There's no motivation at that point for her to get rid of Bond.
No.
To that level. You know what I mean? No. It just seemed... Unless she was trying to sell to him, like, they're after me, maybe. But again, it was rushed. Like, if it had more time to develop.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it just... In a matter of, like, 5 minutes, we see her changing decision-making for this, collective of people.
Right.
She meets Bond. We get in a helicopter. We're skiing. Here's the bad guys. It's like, that all happens in like 5 or 6 minutes.
Yeah,
it's like,
it was very quick.
It's too much. But thankfully, this whole sequence goes by pretty quick because I hated all of it. And it sucked because when you see the Parahawks coming in and they cut to a guy like taking out a grenade, and I was like, oh, this is cool. I was like, this is going to be badass. And like, especially when those things land on the freaking snow, like there's no way Bond's going to be able to like just outrun all of them. So it's like, we're going to see some cool stuff with like the woods and like kind of similar to Empire Strikes Back when they're on those
the Hoth.
Yeah, the rider. I can't remember what those are called.
The ATSTs.
Is that what those are called? Like the bikes that float?
Oh, the speed bikes?
Yeah.
Oh, and Return of the Jedi on Endor.
No, it is Return of the Jedi. Thank you. Yeah, like they're whipping through the trees and making those guys. Like, I thought we were going to do some stuff like that. Yeah. And I was like, cool. Which they kind of tried, but it failed, in my opinion. But the first thing we see when Elektra splits, Bond's going for like a ramp. There's just a ramp on the mountain.
Of course there is.
And when he hits it, the grenade lands behind him, and it makes the most ridiculous explosion. It looks like there was a line of cars that just went...
Yeah.
And they literally show that they, like, exaggerated that because all the grenades landing in the background right after that are just little...
Yep.
And I was like, why did the one that lands behind Bond for the money shot cause the biggest freaking like nuclear explosion? So I put an X for that because I was like, it was too like in my face. I can't overlook that. That's just, again, it's exaggerated production for a money shot. To me, that's just too cheesy. But my first negative in this movie. So at this point, that's saying a lot. We're over a half hour in. Yeah. That was impressive. Yeah, and just I don't know, man. Like those Parahawks didn't really end up being anything. When they explode, it looks like someone lit a sparkler, and I was like, okay, how does a whole vehicle hitting a tree and exploding look weaker than one grenade that landed behind Bond? Like there just wasn't consistency with that whole scene, and not to mention, how does he go all the way down the freaking mountain? Definitely passes wherever he told Elektra to meet, but then they're able just to like
meet up,
reconnect again. I was like, what? Oh, the whole thing just felt stupid to me. It was kind of cheesy. It wasn't produced well. I don't know. So I didn't like that whole sequence personally. Is there anything you want to say about it? Or are you going to defend anything about it? I don't know. These are your people, Dima. Defend the Russians.
No, I mean, the only thing I can see relevance-wise is they set it up for him to really feel like he needs to be right there next to Elektra the entire time and really protect her because it's bad out there. Mm. That is the only thing I can see why they put that in there is for his character to be pushed towards her more.
Yeah. I just think it wasn't executed well is my point.
Right.
Like, I think it was all very rushed.
It was rushed. It doesn't make sense because I don't think she realized like how big of a deal he actually is at that point in time. So
well, nobody did.
Right. So I don't understand why she'd be so pressed to have these people come in and try to kill him or kill her to force him to feel like he needs to be right there by her side 24/7.
Yeah.
So it didn't really make sense.
Yeah, I mean, you're right there. It does kind of show that there is a ignorance with how good Bond is, because we're only 2 scenes away from being introduced to Renard officially, in which he literally is like, but I sent X amount of, Parahawks there. They couldn't handle Bond. Like, so he's aware of who Bond is, but he's like, they couldn't get Bond. Like, he doesn't understand how good Bond is. So that is a good point, I guess. I don't know. That whole thing was just rushed. It was probably cut in editing to make for theater time, because when you go over that 2-hour mark, you're paying theaters a lot more money to screen a movie, versus if it's at the 2-hour mark.
Right.
So maybe that's something, because it just felt very rushed.
It did feel rushed.
And it's stupid because a lot of other things in this movie have enough time to kind of develop and breathe, to where it's like, you might get promised something here and rewarded with it later, or just this has a lot of screen time to really explain everything. So it just sucks when you have a movie like that and it has this whole sequence that just feels kind of, I don't know.
It didn't do anything for me.
But we can't understand what she's saying to the dudes. I don't get why she would want him to go in this helicopter with her. I don't understand why I just don't understand it, like, as just a casual viewer, it was just kind of like a reason to have a bunch of guys coming after Bond down a snowy mountain, like that was it.
Yeah, that was. That's true. I guess that wasn't unnecessary, like, I don't know what to say, fight scene, but like a fight scene.
Well, let me throw this at you. Like, so if it had just shown Bond going there and he sees her handling the politics of this pipeline, making everyone cheer, and then from there it cuts to them going to the casino, because that's the next sequence, would you have a problem with that? Because in terms of like context of the story, I wouldn't.
Yes and no.
Okay.
Because I just think bringing the people in and shooting at Bond was useless.
Yeah.
I think her trying to get close to him, even though she doesn't really know who he is, but like maybe on the sense of like, she knows or is at least familiar with him.
Mm-hmm.
She could be thinking like, okay, if I get him under my wing, maybe he can play both sides or whatever. Like, I could kind of see that maybe.
Yeah.
It's stretched. It's very stretched. But if they were to just go to the hill, she shows him where the pipeline's going to be, and then they go there, I'd be more okay with that versus... Because I feel like they just were like, oh, we need explosions, like, now. It's been 5 minutes. It's been too long.
That's what I mean. It felt like we needed to, like,
so,
insert action sequence in a Bond movie. Not, how would this make sense to the narrative of the story?
Exactly. So if they would have left, like, the action part out of it, I would have been more okay with it.
Yeah, just for me, thinking about it, like, in real life, if I met this girl, like, I literally go out of my way to go somewhere I know she's going to be. It would feel weird from my end for her to like invite me on this helicopter ride to an area where something very important to her overall goal is being developed. And that's why, like, from the minute he gets in the helicopter with her, and he literally invites himself. Right. She's like, "Oh, we're gonna go," and he's like, "Oh, I'll go." And she's like, and he just has like skis and everything. It's like it just feels so forced.
It did.
And I'm like, in real life, it'd be more natural. Like, you meet somebody. And then she's going to this casino. It's like, can I tag along? Like, that's like a first date type of thing versus like, here's what I'm working on. Like, here's the confines of my empire. Yeah. Here's the bad guy that's trying to stop me. It just felt...
It did feel very forced. If they really like needed that scene in there, take the action out of it and it would have flowed a little smoother in my opinion.
Yeah. You know what could have been really cool?
Didn't really need that at all.
Because if the only thing we can draw out of that is it proves to Bond that she needs him there, like they're coming after her, maybe there could have been like somebody in the crowd who's just trying to assassinate her, and he saves her from that.
Exactly.
And then boom, she's connected to this guy because he just saved her life.
Yes.
Well, let's go to the casino.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I'm going to look at my pipeline. You want to come with me? Because I need protection. My security's not doing a good job. It would have
made more sense.
Yeah.
And that would have been a perfect setup because I'm guessing they're villagers or whatever.
Yeah.
They all had fucking guns and shit.
Yeah.
So it's like, it makes sense.
It's
for
on the
one of them to
verge
take
of being a hostile situation
Exactly.
in itself. Yeah.
So that would have made sense. And it would have really showed, like, him saving her life there. Like, he's needed because, I mean, they got their military there. If they didn't stop it, like, they're useless.
Mhm.
If they ain't stopping it, her own bodyguards didn't stop it. They're just as useless. So, like you said, like, she would need him, and it would make sense to lead into the casino.
This is why we should write movies. Oh, wait a minute.
Oh,
Anyways.
maybe we did.
All right. So I like the casino scene.
Yes.
First thing I wrote down is Bond's glasses. Cool. Because they can just see through things. Funny thing about how they filmed that. So they actually had a take where they filmed him. Well, I guess it really just pertains to the things he's looking at. He filmed all the things and people that he was looking at, normally dressed or normally structured. Then they had all those people actually get naked or down to their lingerie or down to their, interior gun holders, whatever, and then film in the same sequence.
Oh, wow.
And then they just composited that frame into the glasses with that blue filter. That's how they created that. And I was kind of wondering because I was like, that's pretty cool. Like, I don't know, VFX. It was impressive.
Get them naked.
Yeah, because you almost got that like POV
Right.
of like, I don't know. So it was cool how they did that. And he's looking at the girls, and they're almost acting as if they know he can see through their clothes. Like, I don't know, being very promiscuous. But anyways,
Said it before, I'll say it again. He's just a douchebag.
dude, he's a womanizer. He really is. But anyways, I like that because we get introduced to Valentine. Yeah, dude.
Dimitrovi.
I don't think that's right. That's why I wasn't saying that part of his name.
Well, it's kind of like part of my name, and then it's just Ovi.
Dimitrov. I feel like it's something like that.
There's an I. Hold on.
I don't know.
How do you say this stupid name? And that's what's weird is, like, of course it was a Scottish actor playing a Russian. Like,
I liked it though.
He did a good job.
He was one of my favorite characters in this movie.
I really liked him. It's like, really, you can't get a Russian actor? Which is why I like In From the Cold, because all of the, like, the series on Netflix, those are all authentic, well-known actors from Russia. So,
well, I'm gonna call him Valentine. I like that. That's how I wrote him down in my notes. What I like about the casino scene, besides the cool glasses, is Elektra just kind of has this very like casual, like, I'm doing my thing. I don't care if someone's like out to get me or whatever. And Bond is like trying to be so protective and trying to advise her to do things, like down to like the gambling.
Yeah. Right.
He's like, make them reshuffle those top 3 cards, and then she still loses, which I thought was funny. But I'm kind of skipping ahead. I like how we're established that Valentine is somebody who Bond already knows about because of the way he has to infiltrate getting into a setting where he can talk to him. Like, it's guns to backs. It's, girls get out. Like, he's establishing, like, I'm not playing games with you. This is serious. I need to know what the fuck you know. And I like that because Valentine, like, his character comes off as, like, friendly and bubbly and and he's just like, oh, great, here's this buzzkill.
Right.
Yeah, and, we'll get into this later, but Bull, his right-hand man with the gold teeth.
Yeah.
I was like, that guy looks like a right-hand man to the main villain, but he's working for, like, a side person.
Right.
I was like, that's interesting, but, we learned some stuff later. But, yeah, so I like Valentine. I like that whole scene. I don't know. Is there anything else we really need to say about that?
No, I thought like, no, not.
It kind of establishes that like he is somebody that is going to be important later because we don't really get much out of him in that fashion. We just kind of know that he knows something about Renard, and obviously he's made wealth from this casino. Like
Right.
those girls get money from him, but then he tells Bull like make sure they spend it in my casino.
Right.
Like I don't know, that was
Gotta blow
funny.
it here.
So then I like how we bounce around here because we don't know where Bond or Elektra go, but we know, they're probably gonna have like a nightcap, and we get our introduction to Renard.
Mm-hmm.
And what a cool introduction to a Bond villain.
Yeah.
Because it's not like this media mogul. It's not a guy revealing he's still alive that's a turned agent. It's a dude hiding. Like it literally feels like if it was a movie about Bin Laden, like it feels because they've established like he's a terrorist. And where is he? He's hiding in a cave in the mountains. Like really cool. And I like that we see Elektra as head of security there. So we're like, oh, because at that point we're like, oh, he's infiltrated like her security.
Right.
Like he's playing a game around her. And he just really from jump establishes I am the big bad. Like he comes out of the cave. He's explaining the natural fire there. What's it called? Fire's breath or fire dragon's breath? That cave that there's something to do with the ground that causes a natural fire with the gases that are being released. And he explains that whole process. I can't remember what it's called. I want to say it's dragon's breath.
Yeah. I'm not getting anything.
Okay, that means it's not really that important. I would say it looked like a fictional thing.
I mean, it's a real cave, but it's not coming up with that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, but I like how he explains why there's fire.
Yep.
Like it's a natural thing. It's not something they just set up for bad guy setting. But then he picks up that rock that we know is being heated up. It's almost molten. And it shows like he can pick up something like this and not experience pain.
Yeah.
So we get told this guy doesn't feel anything, and then we're getting shown it.
Yeah.
And I thought that was cool. But then it doesn't take too long before we see how like maniacal he is, because he makes what's his face think that like, oh, you failed me, but I'm gonna let you have another chance. He puts the rock in
the dude's hand.
Yeah, I forget his name. But puts in his hand, makes him think like he's about to get killed. But then the doctor gets killed.
Devil's breath.
Devil's breath. Okay. I don't know why I was saying dragon. But anyways. So that was cool. Because it showed like he's gonna play mind games, but also like if you fail him, you're just gonna die. Which explains why Cigar Girl was just like, I'm just gonna off myself now. Like I'm not even gonna deal with this guy.
But I like how, he didn't just kill the dude that failed him. Where he made him like hold the rock, and he's over there like in agonizing pain. And he goes, kill him. My first thought is they're just going to shoot this dude in the back of the head, and that's it.
That's what I mean, but they killed the doctor.
And then they killed the doctor.
Yeah. Yep.
And he goes, he failed me. Don't you fail me, or some shit like that.
What I really love about that is he says, take his ID and, basically don't fail me. Like this is your assignment now. Don't screw it up. Now, what's cool about that is I was sitting there like, oh, he's just taking his ID. Like, I guess we're just supposed to assume like it's just going to magically happen. But the next scene we get is Bond leaves Elektra in bed. So we're like, okay, yeah, they had that nightcap.
Yep.
And then we see him sneaking around doing the Bond thing, which I love this whole like sequence because it shows like he's suspicious of everybody, like, right? Like, he's looking at Elektra's stuff. Like, he's trying to get intel on what's going on. I like the credit card that has the key that pops out. I like that we didn't have to have a scene where Q explains that too. You know, like, they're trusting that us as the audience are smart enough now to understand Q makes cool things, Bond uses them. Yep. We don't need, here's this,
Bond
here's
gets
this.
The explanation.
Because in the last movie, that's what I hate is like, here's this, here's this, here's, and a couple scenes later, oh, I'm using this, I'm using this, I'm using this. Yeah. It's like, okay. So yeah, I like that. It was cool. Here's a key, you can break into stuff. But I like that in the background, we see that head of security taking his, like, he's putting a suit on and he's taking a picture. And in my brain, I was like, oh, that's for the photo ID. He's putting that picture on top of the doctor's.
Yep.
So that was cool. I like how they put that in there. And again, it was subtle. It's in the background. Like, Bond sees him in that lit up window in the building. But I was like, that's what he's doing. Cool. All right. It's subtle. But then Bond opens the back of his car, sees the doctor's body, and he's like, okay, I need to see where this car is going. Did you notice what was on that car, Dima?
I don't think so.
The Russian star.
No, I missed that.
Oh, yeah. Yep. And I was like, oh, okay. This car is going somewhere Russian related. Sure enough.
Dad?
But that's pretty cool because Bond essentially replaces that head of security when they get to the
it was the new
airstrip. They get to that airstrip that's by the because that's where the car goes, is that airstrip, and then he gets taken from there in helicopter to the Russian missile facility. I forgot about that. So yeah, but he kind of swaps that guy out, and I actually love this whole sequence. I titled it Bond with the Russians because Bond sticks out like a sore freaking thumb. Yeah. And they all look suspicious of him, but he's able to pass any check that comes up. He knows names, he has paperwork, and he just happens to have the shoes and the duffel bag that the one guy asked the doctor to bring. You know, so he's able to get past all these checks. But he gets in that helicopter, and I actually wrote, have to have bald head to fly, because he's the only thing in that helicopter with hair. It's all just bald, rough Russian dudes. And then there's suave Bond sticking out like a sore thumb. I was like, geez, dude. Now, what's funny is he gets to this Russian, like the nuclear missile site, and that whole thing was cool. It was realistic. I didn't, it wasn't like the ship in Tomorrow Never Dies where there were like parts of it that I was like, I don't think that would be in this facility here. You know, like.
No, it was still rough on the inside.
Yeah. Like, well, and everything made sense, like, design-wise, because, like, a facility like that, it's underground in case something goes wrong. They can contain it from getting out to the rest of the world, right? So, it was cool. Everything made sense. It looked pretty official. But this is where we get introduced to Dr. Christmas Jones. And we're like, okay, that's going to be the next Bond girl, obviously. Like, now, here's something that made me laugh. I don't know if you noticed this. Bond does not use a Russian accent until he meets her. Mm-hmm. And I would say this was a production mistake, but I actually think it was done on purpose because I think in Bond's mind, she is the first person he's had to encounter on this Russian side of things that he thinks is intelligent. Yeah. That's how I took it. Because I wrote, oh, Bond has a Russian accent now. Like, but I think it was smart on his part because she's still suspicious of him.
Right.
Because, like, when he's walking, she's like, did you forget something? And he looks at the board about, like, getting the badge. And he's like, oh, right. And then he's walking, and then she's, like, speaking to him in Russian. Like, she's giving him all these checks, even though they've already talked. And she still is just like, okay, he spoke Russian, but I'm still, like... So I thought it was funny.
I really like their dynamic as well. Like,
yeah,
throughout the entire movie. Like, from that point on, I think they they really, I mean, Pierce and Denise really clicked on the screen anyway. Like, they're both phenomenal actors who, you know, are very good at their roles. And then they had them together, and the dialogue, the execution of, you know, the script with those two, the way they portray it felt real.
Yeah.
And that's just a huge applause. Huge for the two of them. It says a lot about, you know, how well they complement each other. And I was very happy with everything. Every time I saw them on screen together, I mean, became more and more throughout the movie, but they complemented each other very well.
No, I fully agree. I actually really like that we're not forced on this relationship with them. Like,
Right.
everything really does feel platonic.
Yeah.
Up until like near the end of the movie. Like, they just feel like two people that are in professions that their stories brought them together.
Right.
And now they're working together.
Yep.
And it really just didn't feel like anything more than that up until near the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And I like that because I hate, like, even in the last one with Wei Lin, like, it was way too soon before she's taking a shower in the middle of the street in a thin white t-shirt.
Right.
It's like, okay, dude. Like,
immediately sexualized. Yeah.
Yeah, and I even like the Russian, I forget what rank he was, but he's in the Russian military at the base, and he tells Bond, like...
Captain.
Was he a captain?
Captain Nikolai.
Okay. I just like that he tells Bond, like, don't even bother, she's not interested in men, you know, like...
Yeah.
So it kind of establishes, like, she is someone who just takes her profession serious, whether she's into men or not. She's not allowing the men around her to be privy to that. Yeah, like, she's keeping it work related, and that's it. So yeah, I like that. And even, you know, what did you think? Because from there we see Bond go in to the facility, and then he starts doing his Bond thing, right? He's tiptoeing around, he's doing all this stuff, and then he runs into Renard.
I really like that scene between the two of them.
I thought it was literally the best, like, first meetup between a villain and Bond. You understand, for one, the stakes, which we don't get in the other two movies as much, and they kind of explain why Bond wouldn't just kill this guy. But you also understand why the villain doesn't really care if Bond shoots him.
Yeah.
So he's literally telling Bond to shoot him. He's like, I want it. Shoot me. You know, it's just so crazy. But it created a very interesting dynamic, and it was really fun to, like, watch them together on screen. Not to mention, he just has that look.
See, I really liked it because it really... You saw the severity with Renard and who he was. Because it really... Bond was willing to break his rule about never shooting an unarmed man.
Mm-hmm.
Which... I'm pretty sure this was pretty accurate, but Thomas Shelby in Peaky Blinders refused to shoot anyone in the back because of his military service. Like, he pretty much said it'd be seen as, like, being a coward if you look it up and all that. So to me, you know, in the time period that this was, I could see, you know,
he basically has, like, his established moral code.
Exactly, to where he's unwilling to shoot an unarmed man, even though in previous film he said, or Q said, he had a license to kill. So, like, it would have been okay, but his moral compass says no. But the severity of Renard makes him question that. And the only reason why he doesn't is because of the stakes itself.
Yeah.
And him needing to stay alive.
The one thing I really like about this setup, as far as, like, the whole sequence goes, I like that Bond, whoever wrote this movie did a great job. I like that Bond and Renard, right? We got our protagonist and our antagonist. They come to head for the first time in the movie, but they're also in the same circumstance. They're both infiltrating this base. They're both trying to disguise themselves as something they're not. And it's just a game of who gets caught first.
Right.
So that adds this extra level of, like, intensity to the whole scenario. And that's what breaks their, you know, connection or conversation that they're having. Because you really don't feel like it's going anywhere. Like,
Right.
it's like Bond's just going to have to get this guy out of there and reveal to everybody who he really is. You know, that's it. Like, you know, Bond's not going to shoot him. You're just kind of hoping, like, Renard doesn't have, like, a contingency that will work against, which he kind of does, because they're suspicious of Bond more than they are him, right? And not only that, but Renard has more people there. You know, so he's not as alone as, because Bond is alone at this point.
It's
like,
just him.
Dr. Jones is not on his side. She's the one pointing at Bond. Like, there he is. Like, you know, it's like, oh boy, okay.
But it really made you question, like, you know, they're at a standstill. What's going to break the standstill?
Yeah, that's what I mean. And so it's
they
brilliant.
executed it perfectly.
It's brilliant that you got two guys, and you don't even think about that until it happens. And then Bond's like, he's not who he says either. And they're just like, whatever, you know, like.
But I did like how the military dude was like, I'm still suspicious about you, though.
Yeah,
or
he said too many
faces.
familiar or unfamiliar faces. Yeah. We're not letting that go anywhere until I do some more digging.
Right.
And that's when Renard, like, does the head nod at, you know, whoever and gets things rolling.
Pew, pew.
Now, I do have this is actually the only shootout sequence in this movie that I really have a problem with. And that's saying a lot, because I usually think they all kind of suck.
Yeah.
But you've got Renard, who gets a machine gun, and he's spraying, like, literally, when he gets it, he's just like doing left to right, trigger down, spraying. Bond and Jones are standing like this, and then they have everyone else in the circle in front of them. How does he do several passes and they show everyone else dies? Not one bullet hits. And here's my problem with this. They didn't get down low or anything. Bond lets her come to him, and then they run off of frame together. Like, you know, the camera's here, they go this way, and then they jump down to cover. I'm like, just in screen time, not even like acting like it's reality, but just in screen time, bullets should have hit them, no question. Now, if Bond had at least taken a bullet in the arm or something, I would have been like, okay, it is spraying, so maybe.
We gotta step back.
Okay.
Because this is a very key point in this movie.
Oh, the tracking and the missile?
No.
Oh, okay. Because I did skip over that too.
I mean, yes, but no.
Big boy hungry.
Renard, when
yes,
after the dude comes and Bond is on his knees.
Mm-hmm.
He takes his thumb, digs it right into his shoulder.
Oh yeah, he shows that he knows that he's injured.
And
he also says that line.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what it is, but it's what Lecter said to him about, like, something about dying, and I don't know. But yeah.
I just wanted to mention that just because it was such a big thing that plays into.
Yeah, because he literally grabs it and puts his thumb, and he's like, ah! And Bond realizes right there, like, how does this guy know I'm injured?
Yeah.
But also, Bond pans his gaze up to where the missile is and sees that card being taken out and put in the pocket of the shirt. And it's one of Renard's guys. And that's important later. Yes. So yeah, glad we backtracked a little bit. But anyways, back to the shootout.
Yep.
Bond and Dr. Jones should have been hit by bullets. No question, especially since everyone else literally dropped dead. They're the only two left standing.
Yeah. I'm
just like, okay.
That was definitely the Hollywood filter on that one.
Yeah, it's just like, it was the fact that Bond got to stand there for even a second. And it wasn't. It was 2. I counted. It was 2 full seconds. He stands there while she comes to him, and then they go all. I was like, okay, whatever. I guess everyone's stormtroopers now. Like, we just don't hit things. We only hit the people that we don't care about in the story. But, yeah, so I had a problem with that. But then, after the shootout, it gets good again, because it's like Renard uses the facility they're in to his advantage and to Bond's disadvantage, and it works really well. There wasn't really much about it that I questioned. Like, every facility is going to have this contingency plan to shut down, contain whatever the hell's going on inside. And I I like that Renard is so determined to get that warhead out of there that he even shoots his own guy who's not doing it fast enough.
Yeah.
Again, they establish him as a bad guy so well from beginning to end of the movie. Like, he is just ruthless. He's a man on a mission. He doesn't care about anyone else. He doesn't deal with pain. You know, he's just...
And that's the thing is he, you know, him using that facility to his advantage really shows how intelligent his character is.
Mm-hmm.
Really shows how well he plans ahead. Because Bond didn't plan ahead for that facility.
No.
He didn't know where he was going. Renard knew that facility. He knew what to do to use it to his advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And it just shows, one, how intelligent he is. Two, how well he plans ahead. But three, how he gets people to help him. Because there's no way he's pulling that off without having people on the inside already.
Yeah, he's just the puppet master.
And he is phenomenal with that.
Yeah, and his escape, I was totally fine with. Like,
yeah.
There's so much going on. Him being in the back of a pickup truck and just kind of suppressing fire while they're driving away.
Yeah,
I'm like,
makes
dude,
sense.
if I was in that military, I'd be running and ducking. I'm not screwing with it. Like, it's just too much. The ground's shaking. There's fire coming out of gates. They're, you know, yeah, let that guy get away. I don't care.
I mean,
but then, to a point you made earlier, it also shows that Bond is in a area he's not familiar with. Like you said, he didn't know where he was going when he got in that helicopter. Right. He's just posing as this guy and seeing where it goes. But it just shows how he's able to think on the fly constantly. Because, like, their escape was cool. Like, using the compressed can to launch the elevator up. And that's actually really cool. Like, it's very on the nose and, like, wink and nod at you as the viewer. But when she's like, what is your name? And he's like, Bond. And he shoots it and they go up. I was like, dude, that is cool.
James
that
Bond.
Is really cool. That's really cool. I don't care. It's cool. It's cheesy
and
whatever.
But as soon as I seen it, I was like,
I said, he
go.
could have looked at the camera and winked, and I would have been like, okay.
Yeah. It was very, very James Bond of him.
So I like how they escape. Now, I do have to say, you know, there always has to be the, like, fiery explosion right when they get out the hatch.
But it made sense in that regard.
It did.
So I wasn't annoyed about it, but...
It was like a more sensible way to do the Bond trope of him getting out last minute from an exploding situation. I'm pretty much convinced that he goes to the coffee shop in the morning and something's going to blow up before he gets his receipt. Like, this guy... Dude, we should do a cartoon on that.
We should. I like it.
I'll make a note of that. Anyways,
but I like how stepping back to where, you know, Bond is trying to get Renard and Renard's having all those doors closed. I like how he's using that little, like, dolly wheel cart thing to his advantage, to where the doors are closing, so he, like, starts really pushing it to get it trapped. That way he can still try to stop him, and then whenever he realizes, like, you know, it's about to go boom, that's when he just aborts mission and heads back to Christmas Jones or whatever the hell her name is.
I love her name. I think it's very unique. And you know what's funny? I'm not going to say what it is right now, but I think they named her that just to have that clever line at the end.
Yeah.
Which made me laugh so hard. But anyways, or maybe there's a reason they wrote the name like that and they came up with the ending afterwards.
Yeah.
I don't know. But either way, I like the name. I like the name and what it inspires.
But even like with us knowing Bond's going to escape, he's going to succeed and live and move on to the next part of this mission, I still felt like the stakes were there to where, you know, something could happen. And because of the fire spreading so quickly and just getting shot through that, and obviously fire's going to go where the oxygen is. And with that hatch opening, it just follows.
Yeah.
Would they have died in that situation in real life? 100%.
We do see Bond on fire for a minute.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
That's true.
I was like, whoa, Bond's not untouchable.
This movie really kind of showed him to be more human versus, like,
just invincible with no stakes. That's what I mean. The stakes were present in this movie.
And, you know, that goes back to, you know, the writing, it goes back to Michael Apted,
The director.
the director.
Yeah.
Um,
Another kind of TV movie guy.
Yeah.
And he actually did a couple Hollywood films after this, to his credit. So this wasn't like the last guy.
Right.
So before we move past the Russian missile base, I've been saving this for last because, I look into things a little too much sometimes, but I think this was intentional. The last time we see Bond and Renard face to face is when he's chasing him, and Renard gets in that elevator shaft, and the door closes, and Bond tries to shoot him, the glass protect, but the bullet's lined up right with his head.
Yeah.
Now, to me, that was just, he almost got the bad guy, whatever. What was symbolic is if you think about Renard's overall mission and what he's trying to achieve. He ascends in the elevator after Bond tries to kill him, and his ascension pulls the pin on a bomb that's going to explode.
That's right.
Now, that was cool. I actually liked that he would have this contingency because, again, like you said, he's been at this base for a while. He's familiar with it. He's probably got stuff like this set up. I didn't question that at all. But what was really cool to think about is if you think about what he wants in the end, he wants to have a bomb go off that sends him into a higher plane of existence, right? Like, he's going to die. He knows that already. But his name will be attached to this event that'll send him up, leaving Bond, who would represent the rest of humanity, surrounded by nothing but hopelessness, fiery chaos. I thought that was really cool symbolism. It's very subtle, but I think it was intentional. And I just thought that was really cool because it kind of gave Renard a sense of achieving his goal in a smaller scale. So it was really cool. I just wanted to remark on that.
Yeah, the whole elevator going up and getting pulled almost reminded me of Dark Knight with Joker and the bus.
Oh yeah,
with the
dud grenade.
The gas.
Yeah.
He pulls away, he gets pulled. Which, God, we're gonna have to talk about those movies because I got a problem with that as well. But it is what it is.
Yeah, we're gonna get on a little bit of a rant real quick here. What are the chances that a bus pulls out into a line of buses? I've never understood. There's a lot of things. We're going to do the Dark Knight trilogy one day, and people are going to think we don't like those movies when I get done with them.
Right.
Even though I think Batman Begins is one of the best Batman movies. It's like right under Matt Reeves' The Batman for me. But anyways.
I liked how they did that. Now, what did bother me, though, why the fuck was he standing there so long? Because I felt like he stood there, like, if that were me, I'd like to think, like, oh, shit, that's a bomb, and I'm bouncing. I feel like it took him, like, is this really happening? Like, oh, shit, it's happening.
There was probably a second of, like, what do I do? Because I'm going to actually backtrack a little bit more. I love when Bond shows off I called it the bat claw in the watch.
Oh, yeah.
Because he goes like,
yep.
And he goes, and he just like elevates magically up like in perfect form.
Yep.
I was like, okay, Batman. But I was sitting there thinking the same thing you were, but I was like, maybe in his head, he's contemplating doing the bat claw to the Renard elevator, but then he can't save Dr. Jones. So for me, it was almost like a natural thing, and that's why I was okay. It was like, you would have that hesitation of what do I do in this moment?
Okay.
Like,
I'll give it that.
This has been introduced in 0.1 second. It's got a quick timer on it. I have an option out in front of me, or I have the unknown behind me with somebody that I want to save. Right. It's kind of like...
That makes sense.
So I was with you.
I'll give it.
I was with you, but they showed us he had that bat claw in his watch, and I was like, okay, maybe he's going to bat claw out of here.
Fucking wild.
And to be honest, her being back there would be a good reason for anyone saying in their head, oh, just bat claw out of there.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you did. So maybe there were people on the other side of the fence thinking, that. So who knows? Anyways, I think we're done. There was actually a lot to break down of the Russian missile base.
Yes, there was.
Okay. Now, and what's funny, just to reference the beginning of the episode, This is where I was thinking, without looking at where we were time-wise in the movie, this is where I was thinking, oh, I won't have that many notes left, because that was the last thing I wrote down here. So then I cut to here, thinking, oh, I'll be able to fit the last 30 minutes of this movie.
Oh, we saw like an hour, I think.
An hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Hour 15 minutes of story. That's what I mean. This movie's long, man.
The movie was really long. But, I mean, it didn't feel too terribly long.
No, I wanted more. If they had given more context to that Azerbaijan scene, I probably would have liked it more. But that's what I mean. I think they cut it down for theatrical release.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay. Now. Oh yeah, so Bond confronts Elektra.
Yeah. I thought that was very well executed.
Were you suspicious of her early on in the movie? Because I was.
I wasn't. I always had that thought just because of other spy movies. I'm like, because like I said, I thought freaking R was going to be bad. So me just being a suspicious person.
I didn't think that, but I like that train of thought.
But the only reason I'm like, this dude's too goofy to be legit. I'm like, he's got to be a bad guy or something and trying to.
And he gets back at Bond for laughing at him.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had a quick thought oh, I wonder if she's back, but it didn't really hit until Renard pushed on his shoulder. I was like, wait. I'm like, how does he know?
And then he said that line.
And then I was like, oh. I'm like, I'm not going to jump to conclusions, but oh. And then when he approaches her, I'm like, I'm sold.
I was suspicious with her head of security reporting to Renard. Because I was like, okay, that could be him infiltrating, but it also could be she's the underlying antagonist, the hand inside the puppet that's pulling the strings. You know what I mean? A very deep and I'm glad that's what it was because it made this movie really cool. But I like this because even at this point, we're actually not sure if she is the bad. When he confronts Elektra, and even he's still on the fence, even though he's trying to convince himself as much as us, the audience, that I'm on to you. Yeah. He's still unsure because he ends up letting her go because she makes some points, and he's like, "Okay, I didn't think about that." It's like, damn. So I like that confrontation because Bond seems so sure, and usually when Bond is so sure about something, he's right. So we can believe he's right, but we can also believe that he hasn't done enough to prove that he's right.
Which is why, jumping ahead a little bit, I like that scene with M where she's like, well, why do you think that, after he tells her? And he's like, I don't know yet.
Yeah.
So I like how he still didn't know, but his gut's still telling him she's bad. It really, going back to it, I've said it a million times already. The writing was fantastic.
Oh yeah.
And it just, because I was a little suspicious still. I was sold, and then she started talking. I was like, maybe I'm not sold. So I was like, fuck, I don't know. I think so. I'm pretty sure. But it was a nice little twist, and it made sense. Versus, as soon as I said that, because I started thinking, well, fuck, one of the freaking Criminal Minds or The Mentalist or one of those cop shows that I watch, where it's gonna eat me alive. This girl. No, it was Scandal with Kerry Washington. This girl is kidnapped. Her dad is a governor for Texas or something. And the actors in that were phenomenal, but that's besides the point. And he's like, she's a con artist. She isn't really kidnapped. And there's a video. She's kidnapped. She's saying, you need to send this person X $million. Or he's gonna kill me, please, daddy, please. And he's like, I ain't sending them a dime. And then they cut her ear off, send it, and he goes, send them whatever they want. And then by the end of that episode, you find out she was behind it. She cut her own ear off. And
that's interesting because of
what
we see in this movie. That's
But because of that episode in that show, it had me real. That's another reason why I was like, I wonder if she's,
No, it's an interesting angle to play. It
So
really is, because the other relationship that's established is between her and M.
yes,
Because at the funeral, we see her go up to M and hug her. Like, she embraces her almost like a mother.
mm-hmm.
And it really shows that there's history there. She's past just a professional relationship with M. Like, she knows her on a different emotional level. And so, yeah, it's really a deep-seated plot to have her be behind everything. Especially, we'll get into it, but later we find out how much she was actually behind, like, beyond what we even initially think. So it's cool. It's really cool. But yeah, at that point, I like that Bond confronts her. Even though he feels so sure about it, he doesn't at the same time.
And
that's
really
why
makes him second guess herself.
she's like, I've called M. I'm going to blah, blah, blah. Screw you. Shuts the door,
But I like the reason why she called her.
Mm-hmm.
Because of him trying to solve all this and leaving her like he does with any other woman.
Yeah, it makes it very believable.
She's able to call her and be like, James left and I don't know what to do and I need you.
I need you.
Yes.
Which is the other thing that I was like, And even, I forget his name right now and I really want to reference it. It's not Robinson. It might be Tanner. Is Tanner the other MI6 guy?
I don't remember.
Because she's got two bald guys that are like kind of in her ear sometimes, and I think it's Tanner that says like, I kind of advise, and she's like, get off me, like I know what I'm doing, or whatever. But either way, like even like the people around M are like, this isn't the best idea.
Yeah.
But it's not to say that they're suspicious of Elektra. It's just they know that if there's people coming after her that are dangerous, she needs to be somewhere safe.
She's the head of MI6.
And she's making herself vulnerable by allowing this relationship she has with Elektra to kind of defy their laws and principles in MI6. Like, so yeah, it's kind of just like, okay, M's making bad decisions right now. But again, she's not on Bond's page with this.
Right.
So everything makes sense. I don't question everything. I just like that we get to see Bond was suspicious of her before she inevitably reveals herself. And that is actually what we get into next, because we see all of them talking at the headquarters. And that's where they realize that Renard has put this bomb in the pipeline. And I was like, that, even though we end up realizing that's not the main objective, I was like, that in itself was pretty terrifying. Like, that was a cool, thought out plan, for a movie in general. It's just like, let's get this thing inside of this pipeline that we have established is important throughout the whole movie. Right. And now we're probably gonna have to sacrifice the structure of this pipeline to stop the bomb. Like, it's cool. It creates stakes within itself, even though they don't really matter in the long run. But at that point, we believed it did. So Bond's like, I'm going to go stop it. And I started to see Dr. Jones following him. I was like, oh, okay. Like, what is going to be her reason for going? I can deactivate the bomb. I was like, oh, okay.
Because
sold.
Bond was like, what do I need to deactivate it? And she goes,
me. Yeah.
And I'm like, makes sense.
Because I was like, what would make it so this doctor with no other credentials gets to go with Bond on this high risk mission? But no, I mean, that was it.
But it makes sense.
That sold itself. Yeah. So I went from questioning it to being totally sold on it in a matter of 2 seconds. It's like, cool. Because otherwise, it's just the typical, like, this girl only feels safe with Bond, so she's going to stick with him, and then she's in this predicament. You know what I mean? So I like that she actually had reason for being there. She was important other than just being the Bond girl.
But right? I like that, the way they filmed that as well.
Oh, dude, it was so cool.
Because
it was so cool.
She saw it, and he goes, do you even know how to operate this? And she goes, it doesn't take a master's in whatever degree she has to do this. And I'm like, okay, she's very smart. She's... It makes sense for her to be able to at least figure it out enough to operate it. But you, like Bond in the beginning of the movie with the boat, you saw her struggling with it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't show like, oh, I'm hopping in this and I automatically know how to operate it. No, she struggled with it a little bit. but she was able to get around it enough to operate it as needed in order to solve that.
That was filmed so well.
Ouch. It was. And
there weren't any parts of that where I questioned if they were in this pipeline.
No.
They did a great job of filming that.
And I like how, they really, again, they made the stakes seem very high there. Like, they're dying. Like, there's no way they can get out of this because the bolts were stripped. There's something else wrong as well.
Well, they realized that only half of the plutonium is
That's
in
what
it.
it was.
So it's only it's an explosive, but it's not fully nuclear.
Right. So, it makes you think, like, are they going to get out of this? And if they don't, nobody's going to be able to take care of the rest. So the fact that they were able to jump out and the way they had them survive was phenomenal. Like, Yasha got a lot more fucked up than you did in that, because that thing was going 80 miles per hour plus and you jump out. Like, come on, seriously?
I was kind of okay with it because they do like this tumbleweed roll thing for a while and it looked really rough. And I was like, that's fine.
I mean,
like,
it
they're in
wasn't
this
like,
smooth pipeline.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think too much would happen. If they had just jumped off, like, diving head first or something, then yeah, but I don't know.
But it wasn't like a big nitpick to me. I was just like, okay, I feel like you would have got hurt a little bit more, but I'm okay with this. And then it exploded, which I thought was amazing because, she says something about, like, dying or something. He goes, that's the point.
Yeah, I'll say there's something important is that she made it very clear, I can stop this thing from exploding, and Bond said, don't.
Yeah.
Like, he was very adamant that she lets it blow up and then they jump off, and she's so confused as to why. And then we see on the MI6 end of things with Elektra that they see it exploded and they assume the worst for Bond and Dr. Jones. And the crazy thing is, immediately M is just getting emotionally worked up, but Elektra doesn't have any change in demeanor.
No.
She has this, like, look on her face of just, like, almost acceptance that's way too quick. Yeah. So it's not, like, suspicious and, like, she's smiling or smirking, but she's just like, I'm so sorry, M. Like, very, like, discompassionate. Like, it sounds like she's saying something very forced.
It's an act. And
yes.
You're really beginning to tell, like, oh shit, here we go.
But it shows Bond's intellect, because in this moment, if she didn't think, oh, now that Bond's out of the way, I can reveal myself.
Yeah.
If she had still played, like, in hiding, basically, Bond would have come back and realized that, and then, like, she might have gotten away with everything. So it's to Bond's credit, he thinks, let me fake my death and see what she does. She does exactly what he thought she would do. And that was pretty cool because she gives M that pin, and that's what, like, hits M the most, is like, oh my, like, it was you the whole time. Bond was right. And then I guess let me make sure I'm not skipping anything before we move on. I just got Elektra reveal was good. Okay. So from there we see M gets put into like a cell. Like, she's prisoner to Elektra, and that's where M is really sold on, like, she is a lost cause. Like, she's not who she used to be, but it kind of resonates that M accepts responsibility for this. Yeah. Like her guilt is just eating her for, like, ever using this girl as a tool to advance in an operation. Like, it's really hitting her hard. Now, this is where the tracking chip is important, because somebody put it in she's got it in her coat pocket.
Yep.
And we learn to understand how important that was when they're first trying to find the bomb, because they're like, I think it's Dr. Jones says they have, like, tracking, and he was like, oh, you mean like this? Like, Bond had it to show, like, they took it out, Bond got it, so we can follow the breadcrumbs of how it gets to M. So that was cool. I like all of that. And then she's trying to get the clock after her and which I don't want to skip over that. Her conversation with Renard is really good. I like that confrontation because you really get more into the insight of Renard and his motives. And it's just really sold in that conversation that this guy is an unstoppable force. There's nothing that can be said to him to change his mind on anything. He is a machine of destruction that is set on its, course or path of destruction. I mean, he's basically just moving one direction. Nothing is going to change which way it's going. And M just kind of feels helpless. She's in this prison. But then, again, she realizes she has that card. And then she's trying to get the clock that he sets up on the stool. Like, when this thing runs out, you die. And I was like, I don't know if you, picked up why she was trying to get the clock. It didn't click with me at all, at first. So I was just like, she's trying to get that clock. I was like, okay, I'm sure there's something with it that'll activate this tracking card, but I was like, I don't know. I was kind of confused on the clock at first.
Yeah.
And we see her fumbling with it and it falls off the stool. That's kind of it. I don't think is there anything I'm skipping over? I don't think there is.
I don't think so.
Because then, in between that, we see Renard and Elektra. Well, we don't see them have intercourse, but it is suggested that they did. Now, here's what's interesting about that. We see that there was a romance between them earlier on, and I feel like it's kind of crumbled since her relation with Bond, because since the romance started with Renard, I'm kind of left to believe that he's maybe the first man she's been with since Renard. Bond is. So she's been with a man who can feel, who knows how to express love through physical touch and everything.
Right.
And then she goes back to this cold destruction machine, basically, who can't feel anything. And because of that, it's probably hard to really portray emotions through, physicality other than harm. So she's laying there in the bed looking kind of mildly satisfied, if that. And he's sitting there fully dressed and he says, "You're so warm." And she's like, "How would you know?" And it's just okay. Yeah, she definitely did not get satisfied in their connection in this bedroom. And then he gets up and he's talking about how he can't feel anything. And I'm like, how do you have sex then? How do you, if your brain can't receive the message of physical touch, how does your, and again, this is where I started to think about okay, his thoughts can still make things happen, because if you think about something long enough, you can get your guy downstairs to start doing things. So I was like, that's a lot of freaking effort, and he's not getting anything out of it physically.
Right.
It's weird to think about, but I was like, I guess a guy who doesn't feel can have sex.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird.
James Bond, the home wrecker.
But I'm sure it was very half-assed at best, which explains her demeanor laying in that bed.
Yep.
So it kind of shows this, disconnect between them, which is good, because when we see that there's a power couple behind this master plan, you want to know there's a crack in the foundation that can be taken advantage of, which it definitely does. But anyways, so from there, let's see, we get, this is where we go to the Caspian Sea, which I like this because this is where we get to see Bond and Dr. Jones after the Russian missile explosion thing, because we've just kind of been wondering what are they doing. And I love this because Valentine, my boy, makes a return. And I love that we see him walk into this shack or whatever and shuts the door, and then he sees Miss Christmas sitting there looking very, attractive in a dress and everything. And he's like, something about how'd you get past my security? He's like, I got to thank them. It's oh my God. All right. He's just whatever.
Dirty old man.
Yeah. But then Bond's behind the door, has a gun to him, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I'm getting a phone call. I don't know who that is. So anyways, I liked that because it was using what Bond knows about this guy to distract him to the point of, we've got you where we want you. And it's funny. I was okay with everything. I was like, okay, yeah, they've infiltrated this area. They've already knocked out everybody. They've just been waiting for him to come in the door. But then, as if this scene wasn't built up well enough, as they're trying to interrogate him, we all of a sudden get a giant saw coming through the freaking...
I thought that was pretty freaking awesome.
Dude, yeah, I love this whole sequence of scenes. The helicopter tree trimmers that we've seen earlier, you know, Bond staring at them when he's driving out to whatever country, and it's just like, you know, we've seen that that's a part of this oil industry. You know, they're taking down the trees, they're blah blah blah. So you see that come through the roof, and you're like, what the hell is happening? Like, and then it just turns into what I think is one of the coolest action sequences in this Bond series, just all around. There was a lot of things I could point out, but I think the biggest thing is we saw the return of the remote control car.
Yep.
I got so happy about that because, again, it's not explained in the movie. They're trusting the audience is smart enough to remember this from previous movies, and it's also brilliant because it's not like the cell phone where we just make technology that's convenient to this storyline. We're making technology that is just convenient in general, and it's going to stay consistent throughout the movies. So it'd be weird to have an earlier movie where they introduce a remote control car to Bond, but then the next movie doesn't have it, right? So I was like, cool. I love that he was able to just go doo-doo, and it like turns on, it's driving, comes to him. I was like, that's so cool. And we get to see it do its thing with the missiles and whatever before it inevitably gets cut in half. But just to kind of break down this whole sequence, because there's so many cool things that happen, but Bond is he is such an efficient, like, tactical unit in this sequence of scenes. If he shoots at somebody, it hits them. If he does something, it has purpose. Favorite example, he goes through a hatch in the floor and it hits the gunman who was shooting down at him through the floor. Then that shuts after he knocks them out. And then he starts shooting at the floor above him, and it takes out the gunman above him.
Yep. So
in like one shot, we see him come up, get the guy that was above him, and then he takes out another guy above him. Yep. I was like, beautiful. That is so well done. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that. Just really cool. And the whole time, Bull is hiding with that big, like, gold encrusted briefcase, and he's like crying. And freaking Valentine is just like trying his best to run, man. He's getting some cardio in this sequence. He's trying to run, and there's like explosions and shooting and crap. And him and Dr. Jones are kind of working together to survive at this point. You know, they're kind of like putting their differences aside, just trying to. And I like that because there's instances like when the car is getting cut in half, they cut to Valentine's face and he's like smirking, like he still wants Bond to lose.
Mm-hmm.
But then also we see that these helicopters and the gunmen aren't working for him.
Right.
So he's like this outsider who's like just wanting to watch the two parties go at it without anything happening to him. It's not how it goes, unfortunately, but I just think it's funny. He's like on their side, but then he's not.
Yeah,
it's like
enemy of my enemy.
Exactly. But yeah, when he smirked about the car getting cut in half, I was like, nice. I like that little touch. But yeah, him and Dr. Jones are trying to run and escape. Now, this is what was really cool. I like that the explosions happening on the dock caused this fire that inevitably leads to the helicopter blowing up. Mm-hmm. That was cool. I was like, that actually kind of makes sense, the way that all panned out. But the freaking saw blades, dude. I don't even know how they filmed that. I really don't. That was so well done. It looks so realistic. And it wasn't like 90s cheese where it's going to be like, hey, these saw blades are going to like fly off this thing in various directions. Because I feel like typically you would cut to a camera that would be the supposed point of view of the saw blade. And then you would see, here's an example, like Valentine's running and you would be the camera moving in at him and you would hear like a like that's supposed to be like the spinning effect of the saw blade, and you don't actually see it. No, we see all of them going in every which direction, and it's terrifying. Like I was actually like, oh my god, dude, someone's about to get hit by a saw blade. And the one almost gets Valentine when he jumps into the oil. So that was cool. But yeah, I mean, these things are just like daggers. They're going so freaking fast. They're so big. It's terrifying. So
it shows the stakes again. Like everything about this movie was the stakes were always there.
Yeah, and it was filmed well. The VFX, because there's definitely VFX being implemented there.
Right.
They look real. Like it looked like those blades really came off that helicopter. I was actually sold on that. It wasn't like, oh, I can accept this because it's a 90s movie. No. I believe those blades came off the helicopter.
Yes.
You know, more than I believe some CGI in 2023. Right? So I'm just like, that's impressive. Because this movie came out in 99, which means those were probably done in like late 97 to mid 98.
Mm-hmm. That's
impressive, man. I'm just... So, yeah, kudos to the VFX team on this movie. And then after that, I love, like, you know, Valentine's down in the oil pit, and Bond's introducing the cane or whatever to get him out, but he wants answers first. And I like that because he's literally in a position of, like, he has to give these answers. Even the location of where he's been sending the equipment, which he really doesn't want to give away, and he finally does because he's about to drown. And then, like, when he gets out, he's, like, looking for Bull. And this made me laugh. He said, "You gold-encrusted fool." It's funny because the only time we saw him, he's, like, wrapped up with that golden briefcase and his golden teeth, and he's just crying, like, I hope I don't die. So I just thought it was funny, that dynamic between them. And then, as the camera shows the shack they're in and the rest of, like, the Caspian Sea, we hear him say very faintly in the background, I don't know if you caught this, he said, "Can't wait to try to explain this to my insurance company."
No.
And it made me laugh because I was like, dude, how do you, like, say you own this estate in the Caspian Sea.
Right.
How do you explain explosions, dead bodies, saw blades getting thrown everywhere? Like, dude, just chaos. I'm like, you gotta have a good insurance policy. So I liked that because, you know, in Tomorrow Never Dies, we had the joke about insurance.
Right.
Now we've got a reference to it again. It kind of keeps it fresh in your mind. Like, everything they're doing is cool and very Bond-esque, but there's consequences outside of what we're seeing that affect a lot of people.
Yes.
So it's cool to have that subtle touch of, like, the rest of the world's involvement with this. You know, I don't know. Because I start thinking about, like, if there's, like, fishermen that own boats around that,
right,
like, that boat might have insurance and whatever. It's funny to think about that kind of stuff. Because, again, I wouldn't if they didn't have that dialogue in there. You know, so. And we're getting to a part that breaks my heart. So we get back to this headquarters because we find out about what is it, Valentine's brother that's in the he's the captain for the submarine or whatever.
Oh,
is it his brother or is it a friend? I can't remember the relationship there.
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, the specifics of it aren't really too important, but we come to find out because they're wondering where the bomb would be.
Right.
And they go back to that headquarters, and Valentine's telling them, like, you know, his associate, we'll just say associate, that is been training on the submarine, you know, is like, it's a nuclear submarine. And he's like telling them where he's been sending this stuff. So they're like, this is probably where the bomb's going to be. So it's like a pretty cool way to, like, figure out where this is probably going to be. It's not like the last movie where, like, the bad guys doing the thing they've been doing the rest of the movie and local reports make them think, like, oh, that's where it is. It's kind of a more, like, it's kind of what I wanted in the last movie. It's like an intellectual way to figure out where he's at. You know, like, you're getting information from somebody who has an insight on what you don't. And then you're able to, like, take from that and be like, okay, looking at this map, if this explosion happens here, then the downfall from that would be this apparatus, and then the only way to clean it up would be the king's pipeline, and that's how she would get benefit out of this. Like, it's kind of a cool way to like connect the dots on this map, right?
Very detective like.
Yeah. So I was like, that's a cool way to get to it. But then, good old Bull leaves his gold encrusted briefcase on the counter and runs out of the room.
Yeah.
And Bond's like, oh, fuck, bomb, you know?
Yeah.
And so everyone hits the deck, and I mean, people die and whatever, but they're shooting and whatever. And Bond's just trying to get out. God, we think Valentine's dead, which is heartbreaking, right? Because Bond and Dr. Jones run out, and we see his body laying there, wounded, blood. It's like, damn, dude.
Gotta kill the Russian.
But that means Bull was this right-hand man that I thought he was the whole time. That's cool. Hidden in plain sight. Because, again, right-hand men usually have that weird aesthetic about them. Excluding Xenia Onatopp. She was just a normal-looking girl with a weird tendency to orgasm. But,
right.
Stamper had the different colored eyes.
Yep.
And the almost white blonde hair that made him look like Jean-Claude Van Damme or something. You just... and then this guy, he's got the gold teeth. Kind of reminds me of Jaws, who I've referenced from earlier Bond movies. But anyways, he just had that look. So I was like, okay, he is the right-hand man to the bad guy, And that was kind of brilliant because it showed that, like, Valentine was a guy they had done business with prior to, like, MI6 being involved. Mm-hmm. So they have these contingencies everywhere, right? Like, he had a contingency at the Russian missile base. He has a contingency within his work relationships. He literally plants within their own security. I mean, even Elektra, her security, I don't know for sure that she knew that her security was answering directly to Renard. So this Renard dude puts things in place across the board, all the way up to Bull. I couldn't believe that. I was like, oh man, Bull, you traitor.
Yeah.
But it's okay. It's okay because Valentine's alive. We didn't know that at first, but he is alive.
He's such a marshmallow.
Now, we cut back. So we have seen the submarine, right? We have seen the submarine with Renard, and we see the... I can't stand the fact that I can't remember how this guy's related to Valentine. But I know his name from the casting. Give me 1 second here. Oh, no, I don't. Because I thought he was like a captain or something. I really should have wrote this down before we started recording. I'm kind of mad at myself. It's not really a crucial thing. It's a subtle thing I wish I remembered. All right, well, if you find it, we'll point it out. But either way, we're introduced to Renard and his men working with the guys who are in charge of the submarine, right? And we see they have a relationship with them to where they're allowing them to come on the submarine, load it up and stuff. And they offer them champagne and food. Now, after everything happens at this HQ with Valentine and Bull being a traitor, we see... I actually like how this is filmed. They cut to the food and the champagne, and the camera starts to pan over, and we see a dead body. And then it cuts to another shot where we see more dead bodies, and Renard's walking around with his hands behind his back, like, hope you enjoyed the food or whatever. And it's telling us they just poisoned these guys. Mm-hmm. They're gone. They're out of the picture.
Yeah.
So that was just another, like, this guy's really evil. He's killing everybody. He's making a clear path to success. Now, so Elektra gets sent to the submarine. Okay. Bond is put back in the care of Elektra, but not the care that he would like to be put in. And if you're ready, we're gonna move on to him because we're at the part where she puts him in that torture chair.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I've done research on that chair. That was created for this movie. So it's actually created for the story because a chair like that is featured in the novelization and video game.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, but it was created just for this story in general. That is not like a chair that in historical relevance actually existed. It's inspired, surely, but not like that kind of structure where your neck is braced to the back of something and you have something being like pressured in. Like,
Right.
there's no design like that.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was a unique structure for this film, which is cool.
That's cool.
Because she even says like it was found with whatever else in this when we, so anyways, the chair was cool, and it's also kind of refreshing in a twisted way to see Bond in a circumstance that you just really don't see how he can get out of, right? And I was even sitting there thinking like, how's this dude gonna get out of this? Because like his only thing that he can do is talk to Elektra, who we get from that conversation's actually great because it's sold to us how behind everything she's really been. Like, she manipulated not everyone, well, not just everybody on like the good guy side of things. She manipulated Renard.
Yeah.
Like, wow, like it's crazy, man. So she's actually the bad guy in this movie.
Yes.
And that's a great plot twist because like, even at that point when we knew she was bad, we didn't realize like how bad. We're still like, oh, she just got like her mind twisted when she was captive of her captor. No, she was twisting things up when she was with him before, and I mean it goes deep. But that's where Bond realizes there's nothing I can say to this, and even knowing that, we really feel he's desperate because he says to her like, "You don't have to do this." It's like, okay, Bond, that's not going to work, but it tells us, wow, Bond is desperate, man.
He's
like
down bad.
He even says like one more screw, like, and I'm dead. Like my neck is going to detach from my skull. Like, this is it. And then, Valentine pops in.
I feel like he was the.
I loved this. Here's why I love this. Because it's not like, how did he get there?
Right.
We're literally right by the eight. Like, she's still in that same confines, like they run out, they get surrounded by, the bad guys, and Bull's there, like taking his gun. And then they meet up with Elektra. She shows she's been there the whole time. This was all an elaborate plan. So the only nice surprise was he's alive.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he's hurt, but he's alive. And what I like is not only do we get we're deceived by him being dead, but then we're deceived by him being dead again because he falls on the floor. He doesn't have his gun. He's just got a cane. And then, of course, the cane is a gun, man. I was like, that's so cool. That's so cool. And I don't know where your head was at when he's aiming at Elektra and then he like pans over to Bond. I thought he was going to shoot for the collar on the neck.
Same.
But it was actually smarter to shoot for the one on the wrist.
Yeah.
That made more sense. Like, I was like, because not only that, if he misses, he's just going to hit his arm.
Right.
If he misses on that, he's going to hit his face or head.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. But I don't know why in my head I was like, oh yeah, get that pressure off his neck. And I'm like, oh, yeah, wait, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Never mind. But I also like that there's kind of like the wink and smirk nod shit as he's dying. I was like, okay. But I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it because I love Valentine as a character.
Yeah.
And I love that, like, it's almost a redemption arc for him because he's kind of been the bad guy in this movie, or a bad guy.
Right.
But at the end of the day, he saved Bond. He literally saved Bond. It's really cool.
I like the way they did that, like with her leaning over, and then him being able to like kick her,
and
then get himself free enough to shoot her bodyguard. While she escapes and then goes after her. I don't know, It was just perfectly executed.
No,
in the sense
I
of
had
the
no
writing.
problems with it. And then Bond not killing her, I was actually okay with too. It wasn't like, because he kind of showed, even when he was like getting tortured by her, there was an inkling of him that thought he could still convince her.
Yes.
And I don't even think it was just for him. I think it was for M too. Because he knew M had this attachment to her. Oh, and before we skip too far ahead, because I did skip something, Elektra does come to talk to M one last time.
Yeah.
Before this. I actually forgot about that. But it answers the question of why the clock's important, because they have their... And I actually kind of like this because it shows that Elektra almost isn't 100% sure on what she's doing. She looks like she still kind of cares about M in a way, you know, like there's kind of remorse written all over her. And that's credit to the actress, because like she sold that to me. Like, but then her dialogue says you're dying, right? Like my face says one thing, but my dialogue says another. And she sets that clock up, and that was brilliant on M's part, because they don't know that there's anything to this clock. So she puts it in her face, you know, she puts it on the cell, like boom, and then you're going to die. It's like, oh, fuck. And I love it because the security guard, the wrestler, I forget his name in this movie, but he has that suspicious look, like he gives Bond the whole movie, walking out of the room. And it's like, okay, like, what do you can look like that all you want, but you never do anything.
Yeah.
Shuts the door, and then she's like, oh. And I was like, okay, we're going to see what's going to happen. And it actually made sense. It wasn't some weird, like, MI6, like, oh, here's this tool, or like all of these clocks have this thing we've planned. No, it was just like, I'm going to use the battery to power up this device, which makes sense because, like, even if an electronic is dead, if it has already built into it a tracking device, that'll more than likely put out a pulse of some kind if there's a current that goes through it, and it created the blip on their map. I was like, brilliant. So it was just another clever way to connect them to the location of where things were happening. So yeah, I don't know how I skipped over that because that's actually pretty important, but there's a lot going on in this movie.
There is.
So then we have everything with Elektra and Bond, and then Valentine, and then the chase where he inevitably gets Elektra in the room on the bed, kills her, and then M is there, which that actually kind of hit me. Like, I don't want to say like hard, but it was just like, for M, she got to watch somebody who was probably like a daughter to her to some extent get killed by her agent, who she also cares about, Bond. And the look on her face after Bond does it is almost like uncertainty about what just happened. Like, she knows it's necessary to a degree, but she still didn't want it to happen. Right. And again, that's why I think Bond put off, like, even before M is present, he's putting off killing her for the sake of M, in my opinion. I don't think it really had anything to do with him personally. I don't know. But so yeah, I wasn't questioning the delay in killing her. I wasn't like, oh, come on, Bond, you should be a ruthless executioner. Like, that makes sense when it's just the normal, you know, nothingless, you know, henchman. But when it's somebody like this who he's had a connection with on some sort, but also means a lot to someone who means a lot to him, right, being M, I was like, cool. So anyways, he kills her because she's getting ready to like communicate over the radio what's going on. He's like, nope, not doing that, not today. And then I love this because there's nothing with M. Like, she's standing there like, oh my gosh. Bond's like, I'm out of here. I'm going to that submarine. And he is just like, it's almost like the hallway scene in The Punisher, because he's just clear. Like, he's just, I'm getting to that submarine. I don't care. That hatch is closing when it's starting to take off. He's like, nope. He kicks the dude in the face and goes in there. Like, he's just not fucking around. I was like, all right, Bond, I'm down with that. Like,
very angry. Yeah,
dude. And he's just like I will say, as far as third acts go for these Bond movies, this is also my favorite.
Yes.
Because it wasn't great.
No.
It wasn't great. I do have my nitpicks, but it was better in terms of like, how Bond was able to stop the overall plan from being executed. And not only that, but it also still had like the emotional stake of like, this was what Elektra wanted to happen, but just because she's dead, if this still happens, then like it'll affect anyone who survives that like cared about her, because this is like the embodiment of this ugliness that she became, right? So it's like, yeah, the benefit she was going to get out of it for her pipeline is gone, but there are still the emotional stakes. It didn't feel like just because she died, it wasn't important to stop this. Not to mention there's millions of lives at stake, you know, but just in terms of like the narrative of the story and the characters that we care about, I was still connected with Bond's got to stop this. So that was cool, because when you got a villain who's just willing to die, like the last movie, how I wanted, what's his name, to be ruthless and on a mission to die. The media mogul. Oh, I can just flip back a page. Carter. Elliot Carter. You know, I was disappointed that he wasn't this guy on a mission to die, because that makes a good villain at my point. But even though Renard is that guy, you know, if you think about it, him and Elektra put together make Elliot Carter, because he was the bad guy with this mission of I don't care what it takes, but he was also this media mogul that it benefited him. In this situation, this all only benefited Elektra.
Right.
So when you remove that, I was like, eh. So I didn't really care about Renard. For me, in the submarine, he is just the guy that Bond is going to have to run into eventually and have a one-off with. But yeah, for me, it was more the missile. Like, gotta stop that missile.
Right.
And that's why Jones is important. So it was kind of cool how they had that all, like, I'm actually okay with Elektra sending Jones to the submarine, because she kind of assumed that Jones had a connection with Bond. I was about to question why that happened, because I was like, it's a little too like convenient that Bond's, you know, associate, who is the expert about missiles, is going to be put on the thing that has the missile. But I think when writing the story, it probably made sense to them that like Elektra would assume that Bond, who just hooks up with women, probably have this connection with her. And since they're working together, it would hit him more if she's on the submarine. That's going to be the point of initial impact. So I guess I'm okay with it. But either way, I was going to say it's cool that she is on there, so that on this mission where he has to go to stop this bomb, the person who he needs help from is captive there, right? So it was kind of cool how that all played out. Before I get to the end of this, is there anything you want to remark on?
No.
I was gonna say it's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
Bond clears house, the missile gets stopped. Well, it doesn't get stopped. It gets denuclearized.
Right.
Okay. And I like that. I actually think it is cool that in the third act, the setting that we're in is sinking to the bottom of the ocean. That added like a level of eeriness to me, because, you know, I have a fear of deep water.
Right.
And when they show it near the end, just sitting at the bottom of the ocean, I was like, ooh, like, jeez,
very
dude.
creepy.
But the way Renard died was kind of, I don't want to say it was weak, but in terms of like bad guys dying, it was because Elliot Gardner got eaten alive by the saw that he used to break into ships, right? Like, that was cool. This was just kind of like he's trying to put that what's it called?
Is that gold like pie?
Isn't it like a power source or something? Or is it a
I don't know. It's he put it in, and that's what like really spiked that gauge.
Yeah, it's supposed to make it more explosive.
Yeah.
But we'll just call it a cylinder.
Yeah.
Because that's essentially, it's a big gold cylinder. He's putting them in this big like chamber, and it's air compressed, right? So like the air has to come off and then insert it, and it comes back on. So it's kind of cool that like he doesn't get it in there all the way, and Bond activates the air pressure, and it shoots into him. The one thing I did like is there is absolutely no pain shown on his face at all. He just kind of looks at Bond like, you got me.
Yep.
But he can't feel, the repercussions of that. He can't feel. And it was almost like nice from him. I don't know, in a weird way. I was just kind of, I don't know. But it was kind of anticlimactic. Like, they didn't really have like this big epic battle or any. I mean, I guess they did, but it wasn't like.
See, I like the hand-to-hand combat because it was a very tight space they were in.
It was. That
hurt.
And I will give credit to Renard. I like having a bad guy who gets hands-on because Elliot did not.
No, he was a little bit.
Alec in GoldenEye was a trained unit like Bond, so we had this like anticipation for them meeting head-to-head. And it was cool that Renard is always getting down and dirty with his guys. He's in the lab spraying. He's running away with the explosions. He's killing people to infiltrate play. Like, he's doing all the dirty work with his guys. He's not just sitting in a chair like, yes. So it was cool to see him and Bond go at it. And we did see the payoff of this, because the doctor early on, when explaining Renard, says he's overpowered because he doesn't have senses. So like when he throws a punch, most people would know there's a limit before it hurts them. Right. He's not going to feel that pain.
Right. So he's just going to keep
swinging. When he's able to one-up Bond, it makes sense. Yeah. Because he has no reception of pain. So you're right. I'll give you that. That was cool. It just felt a little rushed, maybe.
See, I disagree with that. I don't think it was rushed.
Maybe it's because the other Bond villains get so much more time to fight with Bond and have like stupid things happen that delay. Like, I don't know. Because when it comes down to him and Renard, that's it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's not like a henchman that's going to jump in and help, or like something that's going to separate them, or.
And that's the thing, is like, I think in that setting, with it being such a tight space on a sub, that really hurts. They did it perfectly, because after Renard, I think he kicked him into that little area there.
Little chamber he's in.
And he put up the gate and latched it.
Yeah.
I think that is all that really could happen, in the sense of separating them.
Yeah.
And Bond being able to go around that with the air hose, putting it in and turning it on. I don't see any other option there, because unless a Bond goes up behind him, chokes him out, he ain't gonna kill him. He doesn't have a gun on him.
Correct.
He doesn't really carry knives. I don't see any other way to change the setting there.
I think my issue is I've just been trained by the past two movies. Like, there's always that right-hand man who is also a part of the final act. There is none for this movie, and that's because Bull was a part of the scheme with Valentine and all that. So we don't really have, like, and essentially we find out Renard is the right-hand man to Elektra, who's dead prior to the third act. So it's kind of like, again, that's what I mean. Like, you've removed the person who gains benefit from this. So just having Bond and then Renard going at it, I think I'm just used to like more additives. I guess so. It's not necessarily a bad thing. And probably if I was watching this movie first and not the other two, I'd be fine with it. But
I just don't see how you bring, that's such a tight space. There's barely room for those two.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Jones there, who wasn't doing anything, which made sense because that's not her, she's
her
not,
area of expertise is just the bomb. Yeah.
So, she tried to help, then she got kicked in the face or punched in the face or something. So, like, all right, took her out immediately.
Yeah.
But you add somebody else in there, you're pretty much swinging like this. So with it just being those two, yeah, they're kind of limited to how they can swing and what they can do.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, they have enough to be able to at least try to swing. But Bond can swing on him all day long. It's not going to do anything to him with him not being able to feel pain. So they had to implicate some way to kill him. And the only possible way that I could see in that scenario is to shoot the cylinder straight into his chest.
I know what my issue is now. Listening you talk about this, it's that the third act is in the submarine, because it's like you said, it's a very limited space. It's kind of a bad place to have a third act.
Yes,
I think that's my issue.
Yes,
because you're right. They did what you can do with a submarine that size, with the interior. So yeah, my gripe is that I guess the third act takes place in the submarine, but in context of the story, that's kind of where it had to happen.
yes.
Unless they're like in scuba suits that are magnetically connected to the submarine,
Right.
but then that would just be like, what the fuck are we watching?
Right.
Like,
It's not like they could get up on land.
Exactly.
Because then at that point, he would have already shot the nuke off.
Well, not only that, but the only way that would happen is if Renard had an escape plan, which would totally take away from his whole arc in this movie.
His escape plan was death.
He's already dying.
Yes.
So he's ready to die. Yes. He wants to go out and again be elevated to a higher plane of existence,
Exactly.
which is being tied to this grandiose explosion that killed millions of people, yes. Polluted waters. It's like that's what he wants to be attached to, not life. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. It couldn't have been like a thing where he washes up on beach with Bond and they have a
right. If they would have done that, that would have been dumb and
yeah. So I guess
no reason.
Narratively, I just have an issue with a third act being in a submarine, but I can acknowledge that it had to happen in the submarine, so it's just one of those things that I have to get over. So I'm over it. Now, with that being said, the rest of it was awesome. Like I said, the shot of the submarine kind of like laying at the bottom of the ocean, I was like, wow, man. And then they've acknowledged it's going to explode, and they, of course, eject out of the submarine. And it explodes, and you know what? I like that the explosion matched the explosion in the pipeline.
Yeah.
It wasn't ridiculous. It wasn't like the ocean went like, right. And Bond and Jones come flying out like, wee! No, it was a very like contained explosion, and we've seen earlier that's what it looks like when you make it not nuclear.
Yes.
So that was cool. There was consistency within a non-nuclear, explosion that doesn't have all the plutonium in it. And then so, like I said, they get ejected out of the submarine, and I was worried that we were leading to an ending like Tomorrow Never Dies, where they pop up in the water, and we finally see them kiss, and then credits.
Yeah.
No, I was pleasantly surprised by this ending. It was actually a comedic ending, and I loved it. I wouldn't think if someone told me, like, man, Kyle, the ending of The World Is Not Enough, it's got a really, like, comedic ending. I wouldn't think, like, oh, I'm going to like that.
Yeah.
But I did. I really enjoyed the ending, because, like, they kind of show us the ending of the last film, but they don't repeat it. And then it cuts to MI6 in Scotland, I believe. I think we go back to that headquarters. And, it's basically like they're all debriefing about like, oh yeah, like the mission's a success, blah, 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 blah. And then they're wondering where Bond is. And they think to track the chip, the location chip. And what I love about that, are you good?
Yeah.
Okay. You sure?
Yep.
Okay. What I love about that is like, it makes sense in context of the whole story, so it's not like a convenient thing just to have a funny ending.
Right.
But they bring up the freaking thermal screen, and they just see Bond's body, but it looks like he's laying on his belly.
Yeah.
And M's like, there should be 2 heat signals. And then you start to see like the other body underneath of him. And I was like, oh my God, dude. Like they just had to like end with him getting it. You know, like it's not like Wei Lin where we don't see anything happen. But we also don't get to like be in the moment with them. It's a funny like way to look at Bond sealing the deal with the Bond girl. So yeah, I like that we see the heat signatures, and we cut to them like in bed. I was confused on that. I didn't think we actually got to see them in the moment, but I guess it's afterwards.
Yeah.
But he says, I was wrong about you. And she was like, what's that? Why are you saying that? And then he says, I thought Christmas only came once a year. Like, that's such a good, like, line to end on. Because there's a lot of suggestive lines in this, especially between him and Moneypenny. But then him and the doctor. You know, so it's like, it's funny that that's how we end this movie.
Right.
But it also at least brings closure to this character. Because, like, Wei Lin was left open-ended. And we don't see her again. Yep. And I don't think we're going to see Dr. Jones again. You know, so it's like, at least we have closure to like the story and seeing, I don't know, it's a better ending in my opinion. I agree. Than just coming up at the end of the water and that's it. So yeah, I like the ending. It's a good ending.
I was satisfied with it. I mean, it was your typical James Bond ending. He gets the girl, sleeps with the girl, one-liner. Yeah. And
it's a great play on her name.
Exactly. So
and reference to a conversation earlier.
Yes. But I was satisfied with it. I had no complaints. I mean, it was a good way to wrap up Pierce Brosnan's James Bond.
Agreed. Now we've gone through the whole like narrative of the movie and order of events pretty much. One thing I have to remark on, because you know I referenced the Leonardo DiCaprio sitting on the couch like,
yep.
I did that when I believe he's in the torture chair and Electra says something about the world and he says the world is not enough. I was like, oh, he said the title of the movie. He said the title of the movie. So that was cool.
Yep.
Because it actually made sense in context of the conversation.
Right.
But it was also just like, oh, okay, there's the title of the movie. Now, you and I were talking about this earlier, but for our listeners and viewers at home, Damon? Is it Damon? Or the actor that plays Q?
Desmond.
Desmond?
Llewellyn?
Desmond Llewellyn. Yes. He passed away after filming this movie in a car accident. And that's sad for a bunch of reasons, but in context to the world of James Bond, Tomorrow Never Dies was actually supposed to be his last film. And then they actually changed it to The World Is Not Enough. I can't remember the reasoning for that, but I think they wanted to have a introductory into a replacement for him. And they felt like contextually in the story last time, we had already had enough Q because he only has like so much screen time every movie, you know? So either way, this was supposed to be his last movie. And I mean, it was, but it had to end with him passing away in real life, unfortunately. So that's pretty unfortunate. And I condolences to his family and loved ones, especially at that time, because the man obviously had an awesome career and was finally just going to, I think he's just going to retire completely from acting and enjoy his life.
I mean, he was 85 years old.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy that he went out that way. But yeah, and what a unfortunate coincidence that it's after the movie that he does leave the role. You know, he literally hands the role off to somebody else. So, pretty wild. Now, we've talked about budget and earnings for these movies. This run of James Bond has just been successful from jump. I had a lot of problems with GoldenEye, but it was enough of a success to justify doubling the budget, almost doubling the budget for Tomorrow Never Dies, and then even more so with this movie. This is the highest grossing James Bond movie in the 20th century.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, well, at least at the time it was released.
Okay.
But still, that's a lot. That's a lot to say. It had a $135 million budget. So GoldenEye was like 60. Tomorrow Never Dies is like 110. So we're pushing the $200 million. Like they were really getting confident with these movies. And I think it really shows, like you and I talked about the overall production quality and everything. Like, this movie was just really good. I enjoyed it. Again, it's got a 4 out of 5 for me. I would definitely watch this again just for entertainment purposes. Yeah. I enjoyed it. Like I said, I can't wait till I have kids one day and I can be like, you guys need to check out these Bond movies. Like, this will be one that I'm looking forward to getting to.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm going to make them suffer and watch GoldenEye first.
Well, you have to.
100%.
But yeah, it's definitely. I'm curious to see what happens next in our last movie in this run of James Bond. Now it does have Halle Berry, so that's cool. Obviously, I remember parts of this movie just because of her. And not just because I'm a pervert, it's because Daniel Craig's Bond has nodded to a scene of hers that's very iconic in his films, which is really funny to me. I'm kind of looking through Pierce Brosnan's thing here because I want to see what all they've done with. Yeah, look at all these commercials. They had a Heineken commercial, a Visa commercial, Omega Television, like all these appearances where Bond is Bond.
Yeah.
Outside of the movies. That's what I mean. He was big, man. It was a big franchise in the 90s. And I only knew that through video games. Like, I remember my dad taking me to see the movies and I was like, oh, these are cool, but I loved the video games. Like, the video games were cool, man. And yeah, I don't know. Let's see here. So our next one is I thought it's Die Another Day, right? Yeah, okay. Oh yeah, here it is. So I want to take. I haven't done this for the other movies. I want to see what we're working with here. I know we got Halle Berry.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, Damien Falco. No way.
He's cute.
Charles Robinson's back. That's cool.
They should have kept him at
Moneypenny.
R.
That's what I was saying. I think R was just a joke for that movie. Like, it's like if someone replaces M or if someone replaces 007, like, they still keep the title.
But the way I see it is, it's still Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah.
So keep it as R. And then...
Yeah, but maybe there will be a running joke in this where Bond tries to call him R. He's like, it's Q Bond. You know, like, they still have that, like, kind of...
So it's like Q is the title of the position.
And they just still don't get along, and Bond's like, you're not the real Q or whatever.
Right.
Like, I don't know. It'll be entertaining to see how they tackle that. But yeah, looks like all the normals are in this. Oh. Miranda Frost? How did I overlook her? Oh boy. Are you familiar with this actress, Dima? Have you seen Gone Girl with Ben Affleck?
I've seen Jack Reacher with Tom Cruise.
Okay, so you're familiar with her?
Yeah.
Okay. She is a great actress. Dude, I did not know she was in a Bond movie. I forgot about her in this. I mean, I hate to say it, she got overshadowed by Halle Berry. Just for me as a younger kid, Halle Berry's what I remember.
Yeah.
You know. I'm excited to see what role she has. Toby Stevens, I wonder what he's doing in this. He's got a bad guy look.
Yeah, he does.
I'm familiar with him. I just don't know what he's in this. Because he's in 13 Hours.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I watched it, he was in that. I don't know. We'll see. I'm excited. But yeah, so our next 007 Tuesday will be the last film in this installment of the Bond series with Pierce Brosnan. Die Another Day. Very excited for that. Sorry, we've been distracted by looking into this movie, but I'm really excited to see what they do because this series has done nothing but go up for me.
Yeah.
And I'm really hoping it ends on a high note.
Watch it just
dive. Look at the little teaser we're getting.
That glass looked fake as shit, though.
There's some pretty cool crap going on, though.
I like that. It's very Batman Returns-esque setting.
I was going to say in this movie, The World Is Not Enough, he is the most Bond I've ever seen him.
Yeah.
From beginning to end. I got to... What? Holy crap, dude. Okay, I'm excited to watch this. What is the budget on this? I gotta see what the budget is. I'm cheating. We're gonna talk a little bit about this movie now. Okay, I don't see it. You're probably gonna have to find it. Sometimes they have it just listed on here.
140 mil.
Okay, so it's about the same as The World Is Not Enough. That's interesting. Because they've got some pretty big scale things going on in the movie.
140. They almost made $300 million on this movie.
Wait, off.
Die Another Day.
Die Another Day. Okay.
Okay, they were 9 mil short.
Well,
they were like 8.1 mil short.
It looks very action packed. Like I said, there's some great, like big scale things going on just in that little trailer they were playing.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. Well, that's gonna be interesting.
I'm ready to tear it apart.
Oh boy.
No, I'm excited for this one. That looked really good.
Yeah, I'm excited for this too because then after this we can get into the iconic.
So weird seeing them side by side. Pierce today versus Pierce then.
Oh yeah, that is weird the way it's being displayed on the TV. But the iconic Daniel Craig Bond movies.
I can't wait for those.
Very excited.
I'm over Pierce right now. No, I'm kidding.
Well, it's just gonna be. We're gonna be in for a shock.
We are.
When we watch the first one, because dude,
which honestly is only 4 years.
I know, but
apart.
Dude, it's totally different.
It is
totally different in every aspect. And what's crazy is it's the same director that did GoldenEye. The same director that started this run of Bond is starting the current day run of Bond.
When did freaking GoldenEye come out?
94.
So okay, he had 8 years to get better.
But in context of, like you said, Bond coming out in theaters,
right.
It's only 4 years apart.
Yeah.
Like, I remember going to theaters to see Casino Royale. I was like, what the heck did we just watch, man? Like, this guy's cool. And I remember I was hating on him as being Bond. I did not think he had the look. I didn't know how he was going to sell it. But it's because I grew up with this slick, suave, womanizing, cool, gadget-wearing guy. Like, that's just what I knew. And Daniel Craig really reinvented the character for me.
Yes.
So, not to mention, Pierce Brosnan is a huge nod to Sean Connery as Bond. Sean Connery's Bond was just as cool and suave and well spoken. I mean, he's my favorite, like, old school Bond. So, yeah.
Pierce was just the perfect in between of Connery and Daniel.
When he's like squinting and stuff, he looks old. He really does. Like his emotional expressions age him. It's really weird. They just show all the wrinkles and stuff in his face, you know? I don't know. It's How old was he when these were made? Like 40 something?
Oh, fuck. I gotta scroll.
He had to have been. He had to have been.
What is this? He was born in 53. Where's his freaking movies at? There we go. 53. He would have been 42 for GoldenEye. 44, 45, give or take, for Tomorrow Never Dies. And then he would have been 47, I think, for Die Another Day. And he would have been 55 in Mamma Mia.
That's so crazy to think, like, from my perspective, he was at the height of his career when he hit 40. Yeah, it's crazy to think about. Because I think from a younger kid's perspective, to me, he was like a guy that was maybe in his early 30s throughout all of these movies, like even the next one. But I think a lot of that comes from the video games too, because, you know, the video game graphics, that iteration of somebody just looks like their youthful version. You know, there wasn't a good way to show age unless you just have white hair and an extreme amount of wrinkles on someone's face. Like, I'm going to show you something funny. I'm going to show you what Q looked like in Agent Under Fire. It corrects itself, sir. The beauty of technology.
Ew.
It's not.
That is atrocious.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's how they depicted age. You know, like that was it. That's what we were working with. So when you look at Bond, you know, like,
Yeah.
I guess I need to click on one of these guys. But it was just really hard to like show this guy is older than.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just looks youthful and
Buttered.
Oh, this is bringing up a video. Why? How come you search pictures and it brings up video? Like, I'm not on the videos though. I'm on images. Hey Google, this is Anderson Miller from Ion Stone. Get fucked. Get fucked. I hate Google. I hate OK Google. I hate. Dude, I'm serious. We were all hanging out at Kate's like a week ago or whatever at game night. She had to have music going the whole time, which fuck you, Kate. That was really annoying. No, she knows it was at the time. It was driving us all crazy. But she wanted to have music going. But you have that going, and then it was like the zoo backed up like a cage to the front door and just let a bunch of toddlers loose that didn't have parents, because there are kids just running rampant through this house. Like, there was a point I was sitting next to Jordan and he was like doing that thing, and then he looked at the door to the kitchen. And one of the kids was standing there with his rock band guitar, just going, gang, 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 and then runs off with it. And he was just like, and I was like, oh my God, dude, I'm sorry, Jordan. Dude, it was bad. Like, when we went in the living room after game night was over, it was destroyed. And Kate had cleaned her house before we came over. So I actually kind of felt bad for her. But at the same sense, I'm like, you guys literally have a playroom in the basement for these kids, but you let them run rampant throughout the house. Anyways, the house was super noisy, right? You got a bunch of like ages 2 to 4 running around, 2 to 6 running around, breaking stuff and whatever, hanging off the ceiling fan, whatever, stabbing each other. And then on top of that, we've got us playing a game that's really funny. We're playing Cards Against Humanity. And you've got freaking WAP playing on the Google speaker, right? Oh. It's just too loud. Yeah. It's too loud. There was way too much stimulation. And Abby and I both kept, I think other people too, but we kept saying, like, can we turn the music down? There were times where Abby was yelling, okay, Google, like trying to get this stupid thing to listen to us. And then Kate would do it. He doesn't even listen to her. That is flawed technology. Yeah. Okay, Google sucks. Okay. If I have Siri on, Siri listens to me.
That's true. I'll have my
that's all I gotta say. Google
headphones in, like the wireless ones. Bluetooth ones that Leah got me, and on my phone in my back pocket, and I just say, hey Siri, and immediately you hear that bing.
Dude, not only that,
go away Siri.
See, look how responsive. That's what I'm saying. Abby actually got it to acknowledge her one time, and she said, turn down volume. And it started getting louder. And I started laughing. I was like, how ridiculous is this technology? But you know what? I'm clicking on an image tab, and I'm getting videos. So Google sucks ass.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm about to start... Is Ask Jeeves still a thing? I'm about to start using Ask Jeeves again. I don't think that's existed since the 90s, but we'll see.
There's no way that.
It used to be a search engine. It's still a thing. Let's see if it's self-aware. Ask Jeeves a question for free. Okay, these are like car questions. What? Asks Jeeves to take on Google again. All right, let me just see if this is a normal search engine. Let me just try like James Bond films. It is. Okay. Now, I will say in terms of like the setup, its format, I like Google better.
Yeah.
Ask Jeeves became ask.com. So yeah, for you guys watching or still listening to us, you must be really bored because we're not entertaining at all. But I hate Google for the most part. Like, I hate Google phones. I hate Google anything.
But Galaxy.
Even the search engine, that's where that phone should stay. Preferably in another Galaxy too. I just don't like Google. Google sucks most of the time. But everything's connected to it. You know, like our YouTube account has to be associated with a Gmail. All my emails are Gmail accounts. I feel like if I go somewhere to apply for a job or anything with any other kind of email, I get judged. Like, I remember when I used to use Yahoo as my main email, I felt like people judged me.
I judge people.
That's my point.
I'm going to be very honest.
That's my point. So,
like, if I'm looking at a resume and I see, like, blah, blah, blah at yahoo.com, I'm just like, ew.
Like, you're not getting hired just because you're... Yeah. Well, that's my point. Like, Google is going to be integrated into my life to some degree, and I've just accepted that. But get in there. You've lost weight, Dima. This is not
I've lost, like, 30 pounds.
That's not good.
I don't like it.
We need you bulking up for your movie.
Bulking my tits, maybe.
But yeah, so Ask Jeeves was a search engine in like the late 90s, early 2000s. I thought it was done. Apparently it has turned into ask.com, which is still a search engine, but it's not as efficient as Google. Now, we'll try the other ones. I just want to find one that's better than Google, if that's possible. I've always liked Yahoo, because Yahoo gives you news and weather and stuff. Oh, look at this. All right, hold on. James Bond films. Let's see what happens. Oh. Uh-oh. I might like Yahoo better. How come it's dirty to have a Yahoo email? Because this search engine's badass. Look at this.
Click on a picture. See if it's Googled or not.
Okay. We'll click on Daniel Craig.
See, why couldn't Google do that? It pops up in a little box on the corner.
That's what I was wanting. Oh, okay. View image. That's cool.
Fuck.
Dude, Yahoo's awesome. Dude, why do people hate on Yahoo?
Google.
Why do people hate? Like, even I was hating on Yahoo. This is pretty freaking cool, dude. I'm not, look, and they're not making me sign in or anything. Mm-hmm. I'm just doing this crap. Like, what the hell? There's no movies either. Look at that. I'm not clicking on anything and getting a video, but I bet if I go to video, it'll show me videos. Oh, that's cool. It's actually like YouTube. Okay. You know what? Yahoo's pretty cool. Well, Google, you just lost a, not that it really matters to you, but I'm only searching through Yahoo.
Google does not give a fuck. People will go to Google and be like, why is he only searching Yahoo?
I gotta say, though, if you compare the two, it's kind of cool that when you go to Google, like if you go to google.com, it is literally just a blank page with a search bar.
Yeah. Like,
this is all you can do right now. Okay. Or go to yahoo.com. Well, I've already searched something, but we'll just click on that. Look at that. That's a nice hub. Before signing in, you get local news, world news, weather, sports, general topics, and social media. I mean, this is pretty cool. I'm sorry, but anyone who hates on Yahoo, you haven't been on it for a while. I haven't been on it probably since 2009 or 10 is probably when I quit using it. This is very impressive. Okay, well, I like how like our last Bond episode was we talk about Bond, Zack Snyder Justice League VFX, Bible Man, all this like, and this will just be James Bond and then search engines. Yeah, search engines. We're always gonna keep it spicy.
We gotta.
So stupid. Oh, okay. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap this up. We're just freaking wasting time at this point. We're over 3 hours in, sir.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Now, a lot of it's going to get edited down, of course, but, you know. I think last week's episode, we said that Thursday was going to be the last episode of our first season, but it's actually this Thursday. We're doing an episode on Beau's Afraid, and that'll be our last episode for season 1, and then the first episode of season 2 is going to be on Napoleon Dynamite, which will be next week's at the time of this being posted. It's a lot to keep up with.
My brain can't. I went into my calendar yesterday or Sunday or Monday. I literally added every little thing that I was doing.
It's a lot, man.
Haircut.
Let me tell you.
Washing.
Let me tell you, like how my past 24 hours has gone. I remembered last night. Oh, I still have to watch that Bond movie for tomorrow's recording, right? This is why Abby and I are watching You, and we ate leftovers, so thankfully I don't have to worry about dinner. But then I got a text reminder from our DJ for the wedding that we had to put together our itinerary for when things are happening and send it to him today, which we still haven't done. So I still have to do that today with Abby. We got to finish that. But we were up last night trying to do that. I hadn't started watching the movie yet. And then right when I finished that with her for the night, because we got to pick up on it today, I saw your message from you about doing the tree. And I was like, oh my God, dude, there's just too much going on. I was like, if I do that, I'm not watching this movie. Like, it just ain't happening. Because I think I got like 40 minutes into the movie before I fell asleep.
It was 52.
But either way, it's just like, and then I was sitting there thinking like, oh crap, I got to have this episode edited and posted for Thursday, Beau Was Afraid, right? And I was like, when am I going to freaking do that? Because I'm not going to be able to, you know, like at the time of this recording, this Thursday is when I thought it was going to be posted. But like when this gets posted, which is the week after this recording, is actually the Thursday I'm going to, that's how crazy it is. So anyways, I was like, well, I'll post some small episode of just me talking about whatever Thursday. And then Thursday night, I can edit it. Start editing the Beau Was Afraid or whatever. Wrong. Because guess what we're doing Thursday night, Ema? Filming for Married to Crow.
Tomorrow.
Literally tomorrow. Yeah.
Tomorrow's Thursday.
That's my point. It's just too much.
Yeah.
It's too much.
Yeah, once I leave here, I'm power washing 2 houses. Hopefully getting it done before dark.
Yeah, I'm working until I feel like Abby's gonna slap me if I don't come home. I'm just kidding. She doesn't get mad at me, but I really, it's an internal thing. Like, she doesn't make me feel bad for not being home with her.
Right.
I start feeling bad for not being home with her. Like, she gets off work at 5. I'm delayed because I had to do the podcast. Again, this is hard to do, but I just love doing it. So, not trying to whine to you guys, but
just a lot.
I feel like on your end, you're owed an explanation for why we've been so back and forth with when we're posting the episode, what episode's coming out when. It's because we're never set on stone on it. Like, as time goes, we're definitely locking in a schedule that works. I mean, look at where we're at now. We're doing 2 episodes a week. That's pretty cool, right? But it's still a lot. Yeah, it's a lot to do. But, I mean, at least we're having fun. And hey, this is a nice break from life.
Yeah, it is.
It's really nice.
But they can help lower that because if we can do this full time, which all they have to do to help is subscribe, like, share.
That's the thing. We don't even need money. I mean, no, money's nice, but I'm not a fan of like the people that are like, "Oh, we need your money to blah blah blah." No. We just want you guys to enjoy us enough to where like you want to follow us, you want to keep up with us. So like, I don't know, that's why we keep trying to work on making this better for you guys. You know, like, because if you're enjoying it, we're going to enjoy it even more than we already are.
Yes.
And again, maybe you'll feel more enticed to hit that subscribe button. It's just right there.
Gotta hit that bell real quick.
Yeah. But no, and we're going to have some really cool merchandise things that we're going to be putting on our store. Like our first line, Stonecraft. That's just like a first entry. We got a lot of fun things planned. So I actually came up with an idea last night I'll tell you about after this episode. But yeah, so anyways, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. I think we've been talking for long enough.
I'd say so.
The recording of this won't be that long, but guys, we are over the 3-hour mark on this episode. That is the longest you and I have sat down and talked about anything. But that's because
Bo is afraid.
Yes. Well, that Bond movie was long too, though. To be fair,
yeah.
There was a lot to break down with it, which is just a credit again to the film overall.
Yes.
So yeah, highly recommend if you haven't already, but you're a weirdo and you watch spoiler podcasts about movies before you watch the movie. Definitely watch The World Is Not Enough. It is definitely, in my opinion, one of the best Bond films that's come out at this point in history.
The last 20, 30 years.
Yeah. And the fact that it made so much money kind of explains that in itself. So definitely check it out, guys. And then even if you haven't watched it in a while, definitely revisit it. It's worth a rewatch. So
I agree.
But yeah, that'll do it for this week's episode of 007 Tuesdays. As always, hit the subscribe button down below. We haven't said that enough in this episode. Hit the thumb on hand, whether it's up or down. We don't care. We're just here to have fun until we inevitably get canceled, because that's definitely going to happen. And yeah, until then, you got anything else you want to say?
No, I think we've said it all today.
Support your local Meyer Bakery, but not Helga. All right. Take care, guys. We'll see you.